Hello, welcome. Just give me 1 second. So I can see your messages. Hello, and welcome to Clownfall. Oh, sorry. Hello, and welcome to Clownfall. The end of Boris Johnson, the end of his reign of error. Oh my God, I've waited for this day for a very, very, very fucking long time. So this is absolutely beautiful that this is happening right now. That we are making sure that Boris Johnson is getting kicked out. I was waiting till the washing machine finished before I started this broadcast, and my partner's just walked down the stairs and looked a bit dismayed that she can't get the stuff out of the washing machine. So I can't. Oh, she can't hear me. Oh, I'll text her. So basically, what's happening today is that Boris Johnson's going to come out of this. Oh, stop doing that. Come out this door behind me, and he's going to make a statement in which he's going to resign as leader of the Conservative Party. Currently, sorry, I moved the mic a bit closer. Currently, he is saying that he isn't going to quit as Prime Minister until the autumn, because there's something very important to Boris Johnson, and that's that he stays Prime Minister just as long as Theresa May, or longer than Theresa May. And she's got about an extra month on him or something. So he wants to stay in as PM for another month. So on Wikipedia, he can be one level above her on the longest serving Prime Minister's list. Although, you know, he's a one-term Charlie, not even a full term. Yeah, loser. Absolute little loser. So I'm gonna periodically put my ears in here so I can hear what's happening in Parliament. Well, not Parliament. What am I talking about? On the news. I'm going to be joining you, but I'm going to be reading out your comments. So if you want to join in, feel free. But let it be known that I've only got one monitor, so I can only see what's being broadcast. So basically, I can see up to Lee Corn saying, "Remember when we elected that clown Boris as PM?" Is what we were thinking. Pegnatories saying Bozo didn't even beat Theresa. I bet Theresa is dancing around the wheat fields now. He did beat Theresa. He got more government resignations. Ding Dong the Witch is dead. Yes, but lost by a month in time. Yeah, but the thing is that he's planning to stay on as Prime Minister. So he's going to resign as the leader of the Conservative Party and stay on as Prime Minister, which makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Just give me a second because I've got to text Kat. You can... I don't think that she should be getting the washing out because it looks like it's going to rain. If you like... Okay, cool. Johnson trademark. I don't trust Boris. He called this to remove the bouncers from the door so he can get in the car and call a general election with the Queen. Well, let him. Let him call a general election. They'll lose. I guarantee that they will absolutely 100% lose. So I've got my normal cup of tea that I normally have for these things. I've also got my megaphone. So I can shout things through my megaphone if it still works. It probably doesn't work anymore. Oh, come on. Not today. Oh, there you go. It's kind of a bit fucked. Look at the... Can I squeeze it together? Bobby. Come on.
Boris Johnson is a cunt.
There you go. Brilliant. A bit uncomfortable to hold it like that. Can't wait for James O'Brien to start. Yep. I could put a feed on so you could listen to me and him at the same time, but I think it'd be a bit weird. Maybe you could do that yourself in the comfort of your own house. But if you do want me to read out what you're thinking right now, then throw it into the chat. No sign of handcuffs for either Trump or Bozo, but such is the world, says Pineapple Boy. Indeed. Gordon Morning All, says Caravan Lad 100. It's about time about time he's announced he's leaving number 10. Yeah. Brandy and revolvers are only figurative these days. Yeah, so basically I've got a bottle of cheap fizz. This is Yellowtail sparkling rosé wine. It's not even champagne. Oh, you can't even see that. It's not champagne. It's sparkling rosé. But you know, I'm not wasting the good stuff on this fucker. But oh my God, this is a red letter day, and also fascinatingly enough, and anyone who follows me on Twitter, and you should do, at every country, would know that today is actually the same number of days of being Prime Minister as Neville Chamberlain. So 2 Prime Ministers who tried to appease Nazis out on exactly the same day. I don't think he even made it to 3 years, Boris Johnson. That was 2 years and 300 days or something. Anyway, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. Sorry, I just lost the feed there. I don't like Tom Swarbrick, but I'm glad that he's filling in for the gargantuan mega cow that is Nick Ferrari on LBC this morning, so I don't have to listen to Nick Ferrari because I hate doing that. Can't wait for James O'Brien to start. I don't trust Boris. He could have called this... I've read that one. The Johnson trademark. Who would have thought he falls over a sexual misconduct scandal and the perpetrator wasn't him? Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's what we're all thinking. Boris, the dishonest miscreant, was discovered lying on his belly with maggots eating his face. Oh, that'd be great. Oh, I'd love that. We need a bit of, carnage, I think. He said yesterday that if they want to get rid of him, they'll have to dip their hands in blood. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. But I'm just tuning in to James O'Brien saying he's not going to be popping champagne corks. I will be because I fucking hate Boris Johnson. I fucking hate everything about him. I want him to fail. I want him to go down in flames and just fuck off forever. Absolutely fuck off forever. That's what I want Boris Johnson to do. I want him to go into a hole and never come out of it. Which is, if we're gonna be a tin pot dictatorship, if we're gonna pretend that we're a banana republic, well, why not act like it and just, if we don't like the leader, just make a happy accident happen, like a plane crash, wink wink, like they did in Rwanda in 1994, which triggered the massive genocide in which 800,000 people were killed in the space of 6 weeks with motherfucking machetes. That's something like when people deny the Holocaust. I mean, it's a completely different subject here, but when people deny the Holocaust and they go, they couldn't possibly have killed 6 million people in that amount of time. You're like, are you fucking kidding me? Have you seen what happened in Rwanda? Did you see what happened in Rwanda? That literally fucking happened. There were TV cameras there, for Christ's sake. My God. So, his former press secretary said it took too long to come to this decision. And the sound's gone off. He can't manage on leaving the right sex scandal. Historians of the future will salivate over analysing this man. Well, I don't think they will. I think they'll just see him as a pathological liar. I mean, it's like knowing an alcoholic. A pathological liar is a type of person. And yes, with alcohol, some people can stop being an alcoholic. They can stop drinking alcohol. But there's always that propensity within them to be an alcoholic, and they have to work on it every day. And the people who manage to defeat their addiction to alcohol in that way and manage to not drink have my utmost respect. But the people who do, the people who continue to get sloshed every fucking day and destroy the lives of the people around them, they're not going to change. They're not going to change. But the thing is, it's typical. It's absolutely 100% by the book. This is the way people like this act, who are alcoholics, for instance, or drug addicts, or pathological liars. Boris Johnson is a pathological liar. He is the kind of person who will lie to your face. You will be outside, you'll be getting wet because it's raining, and he will say it's not raining. And the fascinating psychosis, or whatever you call it, behind this, psychology I should say, behind this, is that he convinces himself that that's the truth. This is what pathological liars do. They lie to themselves. And that becomes the truth. Somehow. So, Taki's saying the damage Johnson has done to the UK is great. Oh, thanks, Taki. I don't normally write this, but I really hope he slips on the stairs and hurts his knee, says Jarvis B. I want much worse than that to happen to him. Yeah. Ed Davey, caretaker, this man never took care of anything. Indeed. Jim Bob Robob is there saying, nice to see you again, Graham. Nice to see you as well, Jim Bob, in the comments. I'm sorry I've not been around these last few months. I've been very, very busy with obviously the Ukraine runs that we've been doing and trying to raise funds for that. And also some of the other projects that I've been working towards. But I am hoping to be back on your streaming services in the next... That's a bad way of putting it because that makes it sound like I'm on fucking Netflix. I hope to be back on Twitter and on YouTube quite regularly in the next couple of weeks. But things have kind of gone on a little bit on hold at the moment because Boris Johnson, it has been announced today that he will resign. He has written his resignation letter. He's going to walk out of that fucking door there like a right cunt, because he is a right cunt, and he's gonna tell us how great he was and how betrayed he was and how Britain Trump he was and how unfair it all is. It's so unfair. This is a man who allowed a sexual predator in a position in which he had a duty of care over employees in the company, the Conservative Party, that they work for, right? Who was a sex pest. A sex pest. A sex pest. Oh, this is on top of all the other shit he's done. And yesterday, it came out in the Parliamentary Select Committee that I really should have live streamed, that Boris Johnson met with Alexander Lebedev, that is Evangelos Lebedev's father, in Italy. And then the guy behind him, Boris Johnson's advisor, wrote, "Shut the fuck up," circled it and handed it to Boris Johnson. You see him doing it? You see him writing it? He admitted while he was Foreign Secretary meeting a man who is sanctioned under Russian sanctions by Canada and other countries. He met him without his security detail as Foreign Secretary at a fucking sex, drug-fueled orgy in Italy. This is a normal fucking day for Boris Johnson. It's the guy who partied while you weren't allowed to visit your mum and dad. This is the guy who partied when you couldn't go to your friend's funeral. Or you did go to your friend's funeral and you were one of 30 people or maybe 15 people who were allowed to go. Everyone else had to watch it fucking live streaming. Fucking hell. Right, I'm just going to go back into the comments. Pineapple Boy, function adults perform 2 checks before opening their mouths. Is it true? Does it help me? Psychopaths just skip the first check. Nothing to do about them believing it. Indeed. Rob rumoured to be caretaker PM. God help us all. Jorish, as long as Boris Johnson doesn't remain Prime Minister, I don't give a fuck who is the caretaker Prime Minister. I really don't, because Boris Johnson has this charisma that people like. Rob doesn't. Rob is Alan Bastard. He incarnates. He's channeling the spirit of Rick fucking Mail. Oh, Rick Mail. When we talk about celebrity deaths, that really hit you hard. Anyway, super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Yorash. €20. If some of you want to throw some money towards my champagne fund, so in future I can when we reverse Brexit, I can get a better bottle of champagne. Fucking rosé, sparkling rosé. Thank you very much for the super chat. BJ is the standard idiot manager that in business would be promoted to special projects where they have no power and can do no harm. Unfortunately, the Tories run the government like a club and not a business. The Parliament's run like a club, not a business. Parliament is run like a club. Parliament needs fucking reform from the top to the fucking bottom. They need to be out of the House of fucking Westminster before the fucking cunt burns down, which is going to do very, very fucking soon. They need to be out of there. It's going to cost 20 billion to fix that fucking building. And that's if they leave. And you've got twats like Jacob Rees-Mogg going, "No, we don't need to leave this historic building. Oh, they should do all the renovation works around us." Oh yeah, how did that work out for Notre Dame, you stupid twat? Anyway, so yeah, the whole of government needs reform. We need to get rid of the House of Lords. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry at all. You can go fuck yourselves if you don't agree with me. You need to get rid of the House of Lords. It's got Ian Botham in, a guy who once accidentally tweeted a photo of his own cock. It's got Claire Fox in it. It's got Evangelos Lebedev, the son of the KGB operative Alexander Lebedev, as an unelected lawmaker for life. The Lord of fucking Siberia, if you can believe that. The Lord of Siberia. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. No, needs to get rid of that. Get rid of that. Have the House of Britain as suggested by Will Hutton about 20 fucking years ago. House of Britain. Delegates from England, from Wales, from Scotland, from Northern Ireland, where they meet up and decide things for the best of the Union. Instead of make it so that Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland are equal partners in all this. Instead of feeling like they're just told what to do by the majority of people who live in England. We've got to be a nation of 4 countries, then we need equal representation in the upper house. And you might think that's a bit mad. Yeah, but that's what they have in America, where you have a state like Wyoming, which has a population less than 500,000, has exactly the same number of senators as a state like California. And while that does drive me mad on occasion, it does prevent the tyranny of the majority, if you want to call it that. Taki Yasser, I meant the damage done to the great nation of the UK is by the criminal is huge and will take long to fix. It will take absolutely fucking ages. Graham, please get involved in politics. The great nation of the UK needs someone like you. I'm sorry, Taki. I can't. I hate it. I fucking hate it. And I wouldn't be able to change anything. The system's fucked. The system's absolutely fucked and stacked against people who look like me and sound like me. If I wanted to get anywhere in British politics, whether it be for the Labour or Lib Dems or even the fucking Greens, I need to be a lot more posh. And if you don't believe me, head over to eatingdisorder.uk and have a look at that fucking list. Have a look at that list. Look, I go all scouse now. Although I might modulate my accent so it sounds like... So you take me seriously. So just a little update. Nothing's happened so far. Apparently he's written his letter of resignation. Apparently he's going to come out of this door, this window behind me. He's going to come out of this door behind me. I'm looking at the monitor, but it's not a mirrored monitor, so it's kind of confusing. But yeah. But if you're listening to James O'Brien at the moment over on LBC at the same time, he's having a little bit of a rant about how he... how politics is broken and he can't celebrate the fact that Boris Johnson's gone. But do you know what? I take pleasure in little wins, I might be the guy who's been to every country in the world without flying, and that was, a bit of an achievement. But I still get dead excited when I get to break the seal of a coffee jar with a spoon. It's little things. Just... There's a little bit in Come Up and See Me, Make Me Smile by Steve Hartley and Courtney Rebel. And it's just this little bit of the song. I think it's like a bell or something. I don't know. It's a really nice little noise. And I think it only happens once in the song. I fucking love that. Just to enjoy the little things. As I've said before, when I've gone on about rants about architecture and how shite it is these days, when Anton Gaudi, the famous architect of Barcelona, was asked when he was designing the Sagrada Familia why he was spending all this time doing all these little details at the top of these termite mounds that no one would ever see because it's so high up, and he's doing these little details, and he said, the angels will see them. And I love that. I've said that quite a few times, but I love it. I love that attention to detail. Something that Boris Johnson is not famed for, because he's a cunt. He's an absolute dead cert cunt. And I've lost my internet connection on my phone. Oh, that's back. Oh my God. James O'Brien's having one today. You say that, the most despicable man ever to hold office, which he is. At the end of the day, we still have him to further feck up the Tory party until October. Enjoy it while it lasts. Well, I don't think he's going to stay till October. I might be wrong, and I've been wrong before. It was a long time ago, and there were no witnesses, but I was definitely wrong. Let it be known. No, I have been wrong before, but I don't think that after the bad blood of the last 48 hours, I do not believe for a minute that the Conservative Party are going to allow him to continue to be Prime Minister. I mean, how does that work? Half his fucking cabinet have resigned. 53 members of his fucking inner circle have resigned. I don't mean half his cabinet, because only a few members of his cabinet have actually resigned. A lot of them, like Nadine Dorries. Oh my God, what an abomination that woman is. What an abomination. She walked out of Parliament, out of number 10 yesterday, and the way she walked, I don't know what Emma Boris had been up to, but it was one of those walks, kind of gives it away a little bit. They talk about people's gait, yeah? Anyway, Nat Chotto, Graham, you're posh stroke middle class to me, being working class, one of the true untouchables. I think that I'm middle class. I don't think I'm particularly posh, but I'm not by any stretch of the imagination of the level that can run this country. That is allowed to run this country in the 21st century. In the 20th century, things were getting better. We were getting actually more and more, I said better than like an American. Things were getting better, because there were more and more state-educated people becoming prime minister. Obviously, Thatcher didn't go to a private school. Major didn't go to a private school. But then in 1997, Tony Blair got in, and we could argue about Tony Blair another day. Actually, his government, fuck him, but the government of Tony Blair and then subsequently of Gordon Brown did a lot of good. I remember the days when it was $2 to the pound. That was great, wasn't it? Now it's $1.19. Yeah, Tories. 12 years of Tory fuck-ups. So Tony Blair, privately educated, and then Gordon Brown got in, but he was never elected in as leader, really. Only by, it was a deal. It was a gentleman's agreement, wasn't it? And then Cameron, posh, privately educated. May, posh, privately educated. Boris Johnson, posh, privately educated. Everyone around Boris Johnson, pretty much, like Rees-Mogg and Gove and all those fucking cunts, well, privately educated. And if it was just the Tory party, I'd be like, yeah, it's just the Tories, but it's not. It's Labour as well. Jeremy Corbyn and all of his inner circle were privately educated. One of them was a fucking lord. Andrew Murray was a fucking lord, for Christ's sake. It's part of the aristocracy. And they shut us out. It's a clique. It's a mafia. It's a private school mafia. So, yeah. I'm not going to share James O'Brien's fury today. I'm going to take a pleasure in the small thing of seeing Boris Johnson having his arse handed to him and having to resign. Finally not late, says Peter Jan, sorry. Yes, well, indeed. I'm going to just keep talking, I guess, until something happens, I suppose. But I realise now I really should have got more. I'm going to go and get myself a can of beer, actually. I know it's very early to drink, but I can't talk for an hour without having a drink. And I don't want to open the champagne. It's not champagne. I don't want to open the pink rosé until this fucker comes out. Boris Johnson, liar, philanderer, scammer and coward. Read his extensive biography, How I Humped the UK and They Loved It. Yeah. I know there's people saying, oh, well, he's not Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, fucking Jeremy Corbyn. Jesus Christ. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get myself a drink. And while I'm getting a drink, who's this? Andrew Bridgen. I'm gonna make you suffer through watching a BBC report about some dickheads talking shite. Today it's going to be, I think it's Andrew Bridgen. You can tell me if I'm right. Is this Andrew Bridgen? Oh, good. It's moving away. Oh, some other posh twat. Okay, I'm just going to raise the volume here. I'm going to send the volume on.
That was when you resigned. You made that decision in advance of many of your other colleagues. Why did you go then?
Well, look, I was put in the invidious position of having to defend the indefensible on Owen Paterson. I do think it was the first domino to fall, but I wasn't the last person that was sent out to defend something for which they were not responsible for. Mistakes that were made in Downing Street, ministers, good, decent men and women, being asked to go out and defend something almost whilst on air, the lines were changing from Downing Street, and I think that, as Andrew said, it was completely unsustainable to imagine that the Prime Minister could carry on. We did not have a functioning government in this country yesterday evening. We did not have ministers able to take bills into bill committees or onto the floor of the House. And finally, I'm glad the Prime Minister has seen that, and he's done the decent thing, and for the good of the country, the Conservative Party, he has decided to move on.
And when you're sent out to do that, to defend the indefensible, whether you know it or not, talking to people like us, what sort of impact does that have on you?
Well, of course, it's embarrassing, really, and you feel a sense of shame at having to do that, especially when the thing that you've gone on to defend then changes. The story changes almost whilst you're live on air. So I think a lot of people, a lot of good, decent ministers over the weekend found themselves giving lines and defending something for which they just couldn't stand anymore. And that's why I think we've got to the position that we've got to.
Long-lasting damage, do you think, or is it something that once a successor is appointed, whenever that might be, you can recover from?
I think the damage can be limited if Boris goes straight away and we have an interim Prime Minister.
Hello, hello, hello. And we're back in the room. Hello. I got myself some water. Hello, hello. Right, okay, back into the comments. Back into the comment section. Never read the comments. Never read the comments. Thank you very much, Yoros, for that super chat. If anyone else wants to drop a super chat in, I would really appreciate it, because obviously I've not been doing too many live shows recently. But I will. It will incentivize me to do more of this kind of stuff. Boris Johnson, liar, philanderer, scammer, and coward. Yeah, that's exactly what he is. So we're just waiting at the moment for Boris Johnson to come out of this door. Bobble the table there. This door behind me, and resign. And he hasn't so far. So, by the way, I've got a cold, which is not sexy. Can't even blow my nose. I should have done that while I was going upstairs to get some water. Tune in and watch Graham Hughes blow his nose live on YouTube. Yes. Can you still hear me? Is anyone still there? Are you still with me? Are you still with me, people? So yes, we're waiting for Boris Johnson to resign. Let's talk a little bit about Boris Johnson's life. Let's talk about his life. When he was a small child, he used to masturbate furiously to the sound of his dad beating his mum so badly that she once got hospitalised, that we know of. Then he went to prep school, and then he went to Eton. And at Eton, he bullied the other children so badly that one of them committed suicide. I'm pretty sure that happened, and allegedly. And yeah, he was an absolute fucking monster. So much so that his housemaster wrote a stinging rebuke to his behaviour, saying that he didn't believe that the decency that holds society together applies to him, which it doesn't. Then he became a journalist, and while he was a journalist, he just made shit up. He didn't prepare for anything. He used to do car reviews without without driving the car. He was a Brussels correspondent. He's the guy who made up the bullshit about Brussels wanting to regulate the size of condoms, the bendy banana thing. That was Boris Johnson, writing, I think, for the Telegraph at the time. He was also sacked as a journalist for at least one paper for making up a quote from, I think, his uncle or his godfather or something. And yeah, he was sacked from every job he's ever fucking had. So then after being a journalist for a bit, he says that he will not go into politics. He will definitely not go into politics. So what did he do? He went into politics, of course. And then he went into politics and became an MP. And it came out that when he was a journalist, his friend Darius Guppy, who's in jail now or has been in jail, asked him for the address of an acquaintance that Darius Guppy wanted to beat the living shit out of, and Boris Johnson gave him the address, because that's the kind of man he is, an absolute fucking cunt. He was then had to resign from the Tory party, from the shadow cabinet I've forgotten. We went through so many leaders in the early noughties. You had Haig, didn't you, until 2001. Then you had Howard. Howard was leader for a bit, and then some other fucking gruesome fucker. But yeah, they all didn't last long. But anyway, he had to leave because what was the reason that time? Oh yes, he lied about paying for his mistress's abortion. At least one that we know of, maybe two. That's what he did. He lied about paying for his mistress's abortion. How any of this comes to a surprise to anybody is just beyond me. Especially if they're a professional. I mean, bloke on the street, whatever, they've probably got better things to do than to follow the minutiae of politics. But, oh my God. So then he bumbled on. He became Mayor of London after saying he wouldn't run as Mayor of London, of course. And in 2008, we had to suffer the horrific spectacle of him there in the middle of the Bird's Nest Stadium in Beijing, and him being handed the Olympic torch or whatever it was, because London had won the Olympics, the next Olympics. They won it under a Labour government, but the Tories took all the credit, of course. But Boris Johnson was there looking like a dishevelled sack of shite in the middle of the Bird's Nest Stadium and in full view of everyone. I was in Australia at the time watching it on their TV, and I was cringing. I cringed so much, I actually broke my back. I was in traction for weeks afterwards. That's how much I fucking cringed at this scruffy bag of syphilitic custard taking the Olympic torch, ready for London. I was like, oh my God, could we think of anyone worse to do this job? And then he was mayor of London for 8 years, didn't achieve anything. The only things that he did achieve have been put in by the previous incumbent, who was the previous occupier of the role, who was Ken Livingstone. And then he decided, in his infinite wisdom, that he was going to run for, he was going to support the Leave campaign in Brexit, in the Brexit vote. Now, he didn't decide this overnight. He actually wrote famously 2 letters, one saying why we should stay in the EU and one saying why we should leave. He had a meeting with Evangelos Lebedev, the son of sanctioned fucking Russian war criminal, KGB agent Alexander Lebedev, who he met at one of Lebedev Jr.'s fuck parties in Italy. He had dinner with him and Michael Gove. And this Russian cunt, who is now an unelected lawmaker for life in our country, told them to go for Leave. Because in the Foundations of Geopolitics by Alexander Dugin, it says very clearly, which came out in the late 90s, it says very clearly, a handbook for how Russia can get off its arse and back on its feet. And it says, cut the UK off from the rest of Europe. These Russian cunts then fucking funded Aaron Banks, which came out massively in the recent Carol Kowallah trial, where they did a slap suit against her for reporting the truth. This is something that people with a lot of money could do. This guy gave £8 million to the Leave campaign, which he never told anyone where it came from, and refused to turn up and talk about it, and got away with it, because they all get away with it, don't they? Because they're fucking rich. So Boris Johnson surprisingly won the vote, because he is a popular guy. He didn't really expect to win it, but he did. And then he went, oh shit, screwed the pooch there. And they go, well, do you want to be Prime Minister? He's like, no, I don't want to be Prime Minister. Because he knew what a clusterfuck it was going to be. But it wasn't until a few years later, after he had caused absolute fucking carnage. This is a guy, when he was Foreign Secretary, not only did he do fuck all about the fact that Vladimir Putin ordered the assassination of citizens on our soil, which killed a British citizen in Salisbury. Not only was he Foreign Secretary during that, not only did he insult pretty much every fucking country in the world in alphabetical order one way or another, most notably in Burma or Myanmar, singing the fucking... He's reciting a Kipling poem, a colonial Kipling poem, The Road to fucking Mandalay or whatever it was called. Not only that, but he went to this fucking sex party, at least one that we know of, without his security detail, of Evangelos fucking Lebedev, the pimp lord of the fucking House of Lords. Boris Johnson's pimp. That's what that guy is. He's Boris Johnson's fucking pimp. And he allowed all that to happen under his watch as Foreign Secretary. As Foreign Secretary. He's like, yeah, this is fine. Russian interference in our democracy. Yeah, that's fine. And then he has the fortune of running a campaign against the most unpopular Labour leader. The most unpopular leader of a Democratic party, a major Democratic party, the most unpopular leader of a major Democratic party in the world, in history. And I'm sick and tired of people going, oh, but you know, Corbyn, oh. He was the most... We live in a democracy, all right? You have to be popular. Oh, it shouldn't be that way. Well, it is. Tough shit. You have to be popular. Boris Johnson, sadly, amongst knobheads, is popular. Well, he was. I've heard some Tory voters in the last couple of days saying, if they get rid of Boris Johnson, I'm never voting for the Conservatives again. And I'm like, great stuff. Great stuff. Boris fucking Johnson. What a fucking joke. What an absolute fucking joke of a man. So, then moving on, he becomes Prime Minister. Well, no, it was before the election that he became Prime Minister. Then he had to get Corbyn on side in order to have an election in the middle of winter at a very febrile time in the British national psyche. And obviously he won 43% of the vote, which isn't a landslide, by the way. It's not a landslide. It's just the way that Parliament is arranged in such a way, gerrymandered, some might say, that he got a seat majority with like a 1% vote difference. I mean, it was ridiculous. People calling it a landslide victory, this huge mandate. No. More people voted against the cunt. More people voted to not have him as Prime Minister. But he becomes Prime Minister. And the first thing he does is he gets Brexit done. He rushes through the most terrible, terrible deal that you could possibly fucking ever imagine. This is like we've lost a war and we're forced to sign something that basically fucks us forever. Our trade, our economy, our standing in the world, our soft power, our everything, gone. Gone! In a stroke of his pen. Oh, we've got Brexit done. And he didn't even get it done. We're still talking about it every fucking day, aren't we? Because the Northern Ireland Protocol. You won't let us do our Northern Ireland Protocol. They're making us do things that we said we'd do. Ooh, it's not fair. It's not fair. I'm going to cry. And then within, 2 months of winning the election, it became very, very clear that there was a thing called COVID. And it was going to fuck us in the ass. And did Boris Johnson get off his arse? His fat, bloody, fucking blobby arse and do anything? No, he was too busy writing a biography of fucking Shakespeare or some such shit. He missed 5. I don't know why I'm showing my hand that way. 5 Cobra meetings. He then refused to lock down until too late. We had a football match in Liverpool. We had the Cheltenham fucking horse races. We had all this shit. And the virus went crazy. And 180,000 people died. 180,000 people died. And there's still people calling the radio to say, oh, he did a great job. He did a great job. Didn't Boris do a great... What? Killing 180,000 of our fucking citizens is a great job. Then he lied about getting the vaccines out faster than anyone else. Anyone could have done that in the EU. Anyone could have done that in the EU. In fact, we were still under the rules of the EU because we were still in this transition period where we were a rule taker, but we weren't a rule maker. We were still in the transition period until the end of 2020 when the vaccine was developed and when it was first put into someone's arm. There were EU countries that allowed the Russian, the Sputnik vaccine to be used. And then in April, it became clear that the AstraZeneca jab, which was the great white hope and all that jazz, wasn't that great because it caused blood clots. At that point, everyone changed to the Pfizer jab. And our rollout just dropped off a cliff. And you can see this on the graph. It's going up, April. Oh, the AstraZeneca jab causes blood clots. Okay, let's use the Pfizer jab. Do we need to get Pfizer jabs? Can we get Pfizer jabs? No, you've got to wait till September. Why? Because you're not part of the EU anymore. If we had stayed in the EU, we could have still used the AstraZeneca jab to get started, but then we would have to switch, and then we could have switched straight away to Pfizer. But we couldn't. We had to go to the back of the queue, and we had to wait till September. And in that time, thousands of more people died. This is Boris Johnson's record as Prime Minister. Record of absolute fucking carnage, chaos, pain, suffering, unimaginable. It's painful the amount of suffering that cunt's caused. And there's people still defending him. Oh, my Boris, oh. It's like someone turning up to a scene, a massacre in a mansion or something. There's like people's body parts everywhere, blood split up the walls. And there's their son with a fucking machete going, I killed them all. And then giving him a fucking cuddle and telling him he's been a good boy. Like, what? And then it was scandal after. So while we were locked down, he wasn't. He was having a party. A party in his massive fucking house in London, central London, massive fucking house. Everyone round to mine for drinks. Because the press office needed a break. The press office, the people who write press releases, that's a piece of paper to you and me. That's an A4 sheet of paper telling the press what the government's up to or defending Boris Johnson's latest fucking horrible thing that he's done. His latest action of a miscreant. And on top of that, you had these flights to Rwanda. We've had the absolutely shocking state of the borders that we've got under Boris Johnson, in which, 1 million people came here last year. And you thought that Brexit was going to solve the immigration issue. I can't do anything but laugh at you. And then we've got, 30,000 refugees came in little boats last year because we won't allow them to just apply online like we do for refugees from Ukraine. So how many of them do you reckon got sent back? Out of 30,000? 20. And not 20,000, just 20. I knew all along he got the country, he got in the country to be fucked. Well, it is. It's going to take generations to fix this mess. Lol, Brexit is a result of English xenophobic cunts, not Russians. Yeah, but the Russians weaponized the English xenophobic cunts. They put a lot of money and effort into stirring up these bullshit culture wars so that people started freaking out about their sovereignty all of a sudden. Oh, what about me sovereignty? I need me sovereignty. Quick. Someone, I'm having an attack. Give me your sovereignty. Call the ambulance. Hello, ambulance. I need an ambulance. I'm running out of sovereignty. Horrible bastard has gone. It's about time. Yep. Why is hate for custard? Peter Jan? Well, you know, it's a bit prison food, isn't it? To celebrate the dildo exit, indeed. By the old moon male pagoda, looking lazy at the sea. There's a Burma girl, a setting. I know she thinks of me. That's from Sean. Yeah, it was the road to Mandalay, or come back to Mandalay. Joey said, I knew all along. Oh, sorry, I read that one. He never had a clue what was going on. No, good morning. I've just got up. Good morning, Richard. Hope you're feeling good today. Heathrow Airport was wide open at the time. Indeed. The system is screwed. Wait for the Russia reports. Well, if we're ever going to have a report into what happened, we did have a Russia report, but it didn't look into what happened in the Brexit referendum at all. Didn't touch it. Said something might have happened, which it did, because the Russians interfered. Weaponized the gammon. Fucking middle class graspers, upper class twats, and working class Tories. Working class Tories. Is there anything more dismal than a working class Tory? Not on this fucking planet. So just so you've got a level on this, right? The population of Japan is about 130 million, right? And they've had 31,000 deaths. We've had 150,000 more deaths than Japan, and they have a population of 130 million, and we have a population of about 66 million. So they have a population almost double ours, and they've had 31,000 deaths. 31,360 deaths. How is that right? How is that fair? Patel's solo visits to Israel, indeed. Sean, that's why Patel got kicked out of Theresa May's cabinet, because she said she was on holiday in Israel. She was on holiday in Israel, having a nice holiday in Israel, meeting with the Israeli government and trying to channel money that was meant for overseas aid to the Israeli military. What a lovely woman. And then he put the most rancid fuckwits in his cabinet imaginable, Patel being the queen amongst them, but also people like Nadine Dorries as culture minister. A woman so dense she bends light. A woman so just vacuous. She sucks in. She sucks in everything around her. And she decides she's going to be she's the Minister of Culture, Media and Sport. She knows nothing about culture. She knows nothing about media. She didn't even know how Channel 4 was funded. She thought it was funded by the taxpayer. You're a fucking idiot. And she knows nothing about sport. She doesn't even know the difference between rugby league and rugby union. Cards on the table. Don't really know the difference between rugby league and rugby union. I know they have different numbers of players. But I know that the people who like rugby league and rugby union take it very seriously. And if I was, heaven forfend, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, I would make a fucking big effort to not get rugby union and rugby league mixed up, because people get very passionate about it. It would be a bit like referring to Liverpool as Liverpool United. It's not Liverpool United, it's just Liverpool, mate. Oh, Everton Athletic. If you know your history. She sucked something all right. One big turd sinks to the bottom, another floats to the top. It's not your job. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. If it was my job, I would get a bit more informed about the differences between Don't they have people working for them who can give them a little fact sheet? Say to them, can you just look up on Wikipedia? Can you just look this up for me? And I can't be arsed reading the whole Wikipedia thing. Just read it out. Just tell me what I need to know. Jesus Christ. Apparently they're trying to lure him out, use some used knickers on a fishing line. Accrington Stanley. Yeah, gives a job. Lee Corn said, I just hope whoever the next Tory leader doesn't let any of these cunts within 100 miles of government. Well, I'm hoping that as well. My champagne is getting warm about this. I'm not happy about the fact that, well, it's not champagne, but I'm not happy about the fact that he's keeping us waiting as always. As fucking always. But it's great that you're here. Thank you for listening to me. And if you would like to also listen to James O'Brien or watch BBC News at the same time, you're very welcome to do so. My party will have to wait till later, says Duke Vengeance. My mother's garden needs mowing. Super Tansky saying, everyone is rejoicing, but everything is fucked. If Rab is the answer, the question is mad. Yeah. The leadership contest is going to be like choosing which lump of shite you want thrown in your face next. Indeed. Chris Mason confirmed Boris Johnson is standing down. Admit it, this is Super Tansky on Twitter. You wanted this madness to go on to the point where he made a fort in his office and survived on dead bees from the windowsill. Yeah. And over at LBC, we've got James O'Brien asking people not to call him Boris. Call him Johnson, because that's his fucking name. Johnson the cunt. Right, I am going to go and put this back in the fridge. I've already taken the silver foil thing off the top, the golden foil. But I'm going to put that back in the fridge because I feel like it might be a bit of a wait and I don't want it to go warm. So if I see that something's going to happen, I'm going to run upstairs and go and get it. So in the meantime, like I did last time, I'm going to allow you to watch a little bit of BBC News. Behind me. I know it's a bit mad, isn't it? Because you're like, well, why would we want to watch the news when we could be... Well, but here it is. Here's BBC News here. And yeah, we've got some guy talking. Obviously, we've got the famous door there waiting for it to open. So I'm just going to leave you with the audio from BBC News just for a second while I go and throw this in the fridge. And I think I'm going to refill my water cup. Because it's not enough. So you guys, you can talk amongst yourselves while I'm gone, but I'll only be a minute. So here we go. Here's some gobshite talking on the BBC News. I don't know who it is. Should I move him across a little bit? Oh no, because that'll mess the picture up for later. All right, here he is. Oh, I just realised that I turned the volume down on the BBC there. So that was 30 seconds of silence. That was a bit of your life that you're never going to get back. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that happened. I didn't realise when I got back. I was like, why is the sound not bouncing up and down nicely? Sorry for leaving you in silence there. Yeah, there's Boris Johnson there being a little shit. The one teeny problem, Graham, no sound. Is it real? There's no sound. Sorry about that. What are they saying here? Is this Boris Johnson leaving? Is this him resigning? Is that a picture of him resigning? I don't know. This is a bit weird because it looks like I've got someone over the fucking side of my head. Come on. Let's get rid of the BBC for now. I'm just planning to use their footage once, once the door opens, because this isn't a live feed behind me. It's just a picture. It's just a still that I've made slightly out of focus, so it looks like I'm really here, which I'm not, because I'm obviously it's a green screen. Is it me or is there sound? No sound. It was 1 minute of silence. The outgoing dying cunt. Yeah. They are waiting in the clown car. Surely you have a patriotic plastic pint bottle of Prosecco. I'm not getting a plastic bottle. They are waiting for the clown car. One would guess they are not common. That's some Eurowash. My bottle of bubbly are still in the fridge. I just hope BJ hasn't drunk them. Call him ex-Prime Minister, indeed. Out of the frying pan, hard to see how things could have got worse, but how do things get better? Well, how things get better, to start with, is just the fact that Boris Johnson isn't going to be our Prime Minister anymore. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, because obviously I've got to fill for time, waiting for the cunt to come out of his fucking office. He's probably still asleep. He's probably still in bed. Sitting there watching, fucking lying in bed watching Netflix. I believe that Boris Johnson is not just a menace to fucking decent society, but he represents a very British thing, and I talked about this yesterday a lot, where I know actually it might just be a human thing, not just a British thing, but we tend to forgive people who can make us laugh. And he makes people laugh in a way that Dominic Raab has never, ever, ever made anyone laugh. In a way that Priti Patel has never, ever made anyone laugh. Do you know what I mean? They've never done it. They've never given anyone like a bit of a hoot. They've never told a good gag. Some could argue that Michael Gove was once on a comedy show with David Baddiel. Comedy show called Stab in the Dark, Channel 4, in the early 90s. But he wasn't very funny. He was just a bit weird. But yeah, Boris Johnson, he's got a personality. And that's something that a lot of the other people who are vying for his position now just do not have. And that's dangerous for us going into an election. He is good at campaigning. He's good at getting people on side, even though wherever he goes, people call him a cunt. But it's all water off the duck's back to this fucker, because I guess he knows he's a cunt and doesn't care. Being pegged to within an inch of his life, says Sean. Okay. Don't want to think about that. Nice to see you laughing, says Jim Bob. Patel would give you a savage hand job. Oh, should have one of those sandpaper gloves, the ones for sandpaper, and that's like a glove. Should use one of them. Go for Shudder. What will happen to all that expensive wallpaper? Well, they were saying that on the radio yesterday, saying they should have made it like Velcro or something, so they could have. They should have made it out of Velcro, because then put it Velcro and they just pulled it off the wall and put it on something else. Expensive wallpaper. What was it? £700 a roll. While they were taking a £20 away, £20 uplift away for people on Universal Credit. So what else has Boris Johnson done while he's been Prime Minister? Well, he's fucked our businesses, he's fucked our trade. We now have a cost of living crisis. The price of everything has gone up. The price of absolutely everything has gone up. The price of fuel is now £2. £2 for a litre of diesel. It's just unbelievable. And they've been in charge for 12 years. The NHS is on its knees. The 40 new hospitals that he kept on promising have not even fucking been started. He fobbed off a couple of his 40 new hospitals as saying there were these new hospitals that have actually been around for over 100 years each. Hey Graham, beers at the ready here. Save the champagne for the election though. Can the Tories bounce back? Who will they appoint? That's from Samu. Samu, honestly, this is the cheap stuff. It's not even. I was gonna say it's not even Prosecco. It's sparkling rosé. That's what I've got, because I'm not. Yeah, obviously not gonna be doing the expensive stuff. 800 a roll. Yeah, fucking hell. I think so. That should be the symbol of Boris's booting, a scrap of expensive wallpaper burning. Well, yeah, but it's a waste, isn't it? But what can you do now? What can you do? You're not listening to adverts for Subaru. That's what you could do. So yeah, he has destroyed our reputation around the world in a way that it's just so demoralizing, because it's like any relationship. You've got to build up over time, and you've got to do a bunch of good stuff. And Britain has a lot of demons in its past. It's got a lot of bad shit that we did, like terrible fucking shit that we did. You know, kind of like raping and murdering children kind of shit that we don't like to talk about. There's a lot of horrors in Britain's past. There's a part of me that believes that Brexit is, you know, some kind of divine retribution for the sins of the past. But at the same time, I don't see why our children should suffer for the sins of our forefathers. At the same time, I think there should be an acknowledgement. The very least we can do is know about this stuff and acknowledge that it happened and demand that it never ever happens again. It makes me want to barf that you've got people who honestly want to change the history syllabus, so we just pretend that the British Empire was an amazing thing that was always wonderful, and that slaves had a really good time during the era of the slave trade, which we were a huge part of. But yeah, like any relationship, it can be destroyed with one act, and Boris Johnson has caused a lot more than one act. He is a horrible man, a dreadful human being, a very flawed human being, who, under his watch, while he was Foreign Secretary, there was a woman, Zaghari Ratcliffe, Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, who was imprisoned in Iran, and he didn't read his briefing notes because he doesn't read his notes. He just shoots in the hip. He never actually. He's not a details man, they say, and because he's not a details man, he made her sentence. He extended her sentence by saying that she was trying to teach journalism. This is what that cunt did. This is what this vile little fucking human being did, because he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a flying fuck about you or me or the country or the Queen or his party or his wife, his wives, his mistresses. He doesn't give a fuck about anything but himself. So finally today, hopefully, he's going to fuck off. He is going to fuck off. So, if you want to remind me in the comments of any of the other fucking horrible things Boris Johnson's done, I'd like to talk about them a bit more. You might need to jog my memory. There's just so many of them. But bringing in a law to try and stop Steve Bray. Oh, the irony. Steve Bray's still there making a noise and Boris Johnson's on his way out. Nice. Well done, Steve. Also, Steve's raised over £250,000 for his crowdfunder. Well done, Steve. So hopefully he's going to be organising a Make Some Noise protest over the summer. He hasn't got back to me on that. I hope he does. But Rory Stewart's currently on James O'Brien, talking about how bad things are right now with Boris Johnson. Having had Boris Johnson in a role in government for the last 2 years and 300 odd days. In fact, just for you, I will let you know exactly how many days it is. Yeah, 2 years, 348 days. 2 years, 348 days. 48. The infernal ratio. But yeah, the exact same number of days in office as Neville Chamberlain. Yeah, he can't stay in place. He cannot stay in place. But also Boris Johnson, his plan is that he's going to resign as Prime Minister. Resign as leader of the Conservative Party, but he wants to stay on as Prime Minister till October. This is his plan now, to stay on till October as Prime Minister. And it's like, how is he going to do that? He's going to make a new cabinet as a lame duck leader. He's going to have a lame duck leader cabinet. Who's going to be in it? And what is he going to hope that by October, in a few months' time, everyone's forgotten? I don't know. He went first on Cameron's pig. Indeed, he murdered that puppy. He did murder a puppy. Well, lots of puppies actually. How have Labour committed to repealing the anti-Steve Bray law? I don't know. I don't think they're committed to fucking anything at the moment. Labour, Jesus Christ. Some policies, guys, would be nice. Tories now saying they can fix the damage, stroke, restore the people's trust. Lunatics. Well, they are. They are lunatics. I mean, that comes with the territory of being a Tory, doesn't it? Fucking mad people. But yeah, Boris Johnson cannot stay as Prime Minister. He has to leave. He has to leave the office of Prime Minister before he soils it anymore with his putridness and his alcoholic, narcissistic, sociopathic, pathological, lying persona, the person that he is. He is absolute fucking scum. He is pond life. And he can't shuffle off this mortal coil soon enough, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you know, if only if it was the days of ancient Japan, he would have to commit, you know, harikari or whatever. You know, well, I wouldn't stop him. I wouldn't rush in. Be like, oh, should we ring an ambulance? Yeah, let's just give it a minute, shall we? But yeah, so it's all the stuff that we've been warning about, all the stuff that we've told people would happen for so long. And it does feel a little bit like Cassandra, doesn't it? You're destined to predict the future but never be believed. But, you know, you believe me. There were some people out there who actually believed what me and Kieran and other people were saying about how shit this was all going to turn out. Adam and the people that we interviewed all around the EU and around the UK. Jim Bob says, calling Muslim hijab letterboxes, police investigations of child trafficking, spaffing money up the wall. Yeah, he said that on the radio. He said that on LBC, I think. He called money spent on a police investigation into child sex abuse. He called it spaffing money up the wall. Regarded it as spaffing money up the wall. I mean, imagine using that phrase in that context. It's fucking unbelievable, isn't it? Can you play us Donkey Dave 269's bit from this morning and translate? I don't know. I don't know what it was. I don't know what Donkey Dave's bit was. 269. I did watch the Clown Fall Downfall parody, which was very good. How much will the redecoration number 10 cost? Because I wouldn't live there. It's like a drug-induced rich twit hallucination. It's disgusting, isn't it? Not calling Cobra meetings over floods in 2019, 2020. Yeah, completely forgot about that. Yeah, over the floods. He just didn't give a shit. Don't forget, he resigned. I think he resigned like the day after the woman who died in Salisbury. I think she was murdered by Russian agents who were trying to kill someone else, and she was like collateral damage. And yeah, he resigned as Foreign Secretary the next day, so we don't have to deal with it. It's quite unbelievable. Oh, right. So I was hoping for a 10 o'clock statement. But Boris Johnson, of course, lets us down again, as he always does, because that's all he knows how to do. Just let people down. He let down his wives, let down his employers, let down his employees, let down the government, let down the Queen. Oh, proroguing Parliament, the illegal prorogation of Parliament, when he prorogued Parliament illegally against the fucking law. And he sent that mewling pencil, that absolute gob of shite, Jacob Rees-Mogg. He sent him off to go and, you know, to go to the Queen and lie to the Queen's face. Lie to the Queen's fucking face. Eid coincides with the 12th of July in Northern Ireland. That should be fun. Samu says, I hope the marching band are still here. This should never be framed as a sad occasion. Maybe a few party poppers and balloons if we can get them over the fence. Indeed. Hayes, I want to see the lynching and screaming live cremation at pathetic embodied manifold of schoolyard insults. I'm just reading what the comments are saying. I couldn't possibly say whether I agreed with that or not. I'd like a big wicker phallus. Big wicker cock. Massive. Size of the shard. Put all of them in it. Set them on fire. Make the harvest bountiful. So I would like to keep going, but obviously if nothing happens at 11 o'clock, which is just coming up to the 11 o'clock hour now, I'm gonna just have a break. So what I'll do, rather than knock off the live feed, because we have unlimited time on this, I'm just gonna put the BBC News on, and I will put the sound on this time while I go and do a few things around the house, because I've got shit to do, man. I can't just sit here for 2 hours every morning talking about Boris fucking Johnson and how much of a cunt he is. Guy Fawkes did nothing wrong. Well, yeah, because he got caught before he could. Please Stand Down Boris, sung last night by the English Beat. Well, I like the Bay City Rollers cover that they've done, the Bye Bye Baby, but they've done it Bye Bye Boris, which is hilarious this morning. Absolutely hilarious this morning. When was it Susanna Reid? That was BBC. It was the BBC, and they were like, "Oh yeah, looks like Steve Bray's still out." Steve Bray's like, "You'll never shut me up." So let's have a look at how we're doing at Downing Street. Let's see what the. There we go. Oh, it's just people talking. They're just on College Green there, aren't they? Just talking to people. So I go this way. Just talking to this guy. Who's this cunt? Don't know. Some cunt. So I'll leave you with the BBC in a moment. Let's just see. Let's just give it a minute or so. See if he comes out of his little his little den. His little den. But what I'll do is I'll keep listening to the news, and when he does come out to make a statement, I will shrink myself down really small into the corner of the screen over here, and I will business of the government will continue with 53 resignations apparently. So just the news in my ear, I'm just like, oh my god, it's ridiculous. What a fucking charade. Or charade, I never know how to pronounce that word. But yeah, so it doesn't look like anything's going to happen in the next few minutes, I don't think. Boris already looks like a regular politician who swallowed a hand grenade. Let us remember the victims, says Peterson. Yeah, all 180,000 of them. I hope the marching bands are still there. I think Bray has over 250k donated to his legal fighting fund GoFundMe. Yeah, I saw that, Jim Bob. That's all good stuff. Basically, they're saying on the news that Boris Johnson doesn't want to resign as Prime Minister. He wants to just step down as leader of the Conservative Party, but there's lots of calls for him to resign as Prime Minister, because, like, how can it be business as usual? Like, all these ministers have left, but they're going to go back into the office with him tomorrow and go, yeah, well, remember that thing that we did? Yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah, he's got to resign. He's got to fucking resign as Prime Minister. Absolute fucking cock. But yeah, it doesn't sound like anything is going to be happening now. And what I'm thinking as well is, if I leave the room and get on with some work, then I've got a feeling that he'll resign. So I'm going to try and he'll come out, and give a speech. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you at the BBC. And this time, because I'm feeling very generous, I will let you have the sound on, which would be cool. So here we go. Boris Johnson to resign. There he is with the Queen. Is he giving his resignation to the Queen? Who fucking knows? But yeah, here we go. BBC News coming up on the hour, or whatever they say. And I will disappear out your life. Just fade that in. Here we go. BBC News. Oh, that's quite a nice little background for me for the minute before someone starts talking in the middle of. Oh no, I've got someone over my shoulder. Right, let's go. Let's disappear so you can just enjoy Hugh Edwards without me messing up messing things up. Here's Hugh Edwards,
and therefore, as Prime Minister, after a series of ministerial resignations this morning, which included that of the Northern Ireland Secretary, Brandon Lewis, and the Education Secretary of one day, Michelle Donnellan, Mr Johnson let it be known that he would be resigning as leader sometime today. and that he plans to
Sometime
remain
today.
in post until that new Prime Minister, the successor, is chosen. He's broken quite a few records in the past 24 hours. More than 50 ministers and party officials and aides have stepped down over the past few days, citing the Prime Minister's lack of integrity, as some see it, and competence. We're expecting a statement from Boris Johnson here in Downing Street at some point later. Now, just before we get on to talk to some of the parliamentary colleagues of Mr Johnson's, to ask them what they think is going to happen, I'm joined now in Downing Street by our political editor, Chris Mason. Chris, it's been a very busy and eventful morning already, but let's just underline what's going on so that those viewers joining us are very clear. The Prime Minister, as you hinted last night very clearly, is to go.
He is. Yeah, so we should pull apart here what he is intending to resign from and not in the short term. So Boris Johnson has decided this morning he is to resign as Conservative Party leader today, but crucially not as Prime Minister. There always has to be a Prime Minister. He is saying he will carry on as Prime Minister for the time it takes the Conservative Party to elect a new leader. And the time frame that Downing Street envisage is one where there'll be a new Prime Minister in post by the time of the Conservative Party conference. That starts at the beginning of October. And the intention from Boris Johnson, deciding what to do as he was over breakfast this morning, is that he will carry on in the interim. Now, since that announcement, or that briefing to me at just after 9 o'clock, there have been people within the Conservative Party and on the opposition benches saying, is that tenable? There are around 30 vacancies in government at the moment. The very functioning of government is a live question at the moment. So would it not be better, argue some, for there to be an interim Prime Minister over the summer who then gives way to the newly elected Conservative leader and Prime Minister in October? Just been told in the last couple of minutes, Hugh, that we will get announcements coming in the coming minutes about new cabinet positions. In other words, the intention in there right now
is that
they are going to prove, they hope, that they can assemble, under Boris Johnson's leadership, a coherent and functioning temporary government.
What a temporary government
that will run the country until October. Whilst others say he should stand down as Prime Minister as well.
He needs to stand down as Prime Minister immediately. He's a
that's a tricky situation. The assumption, I suppose, being in there
just will not
that people who may not want to serve under Boris Johnson will nonetheless do so because they feel it's their duty to keep government going.
Exactly, and I think the key thing that we're attempting to measure today is to what extent has Boris Johnson lanced to the boil of anger amongst his Conservative colleagues by saying, OK, I get it, I don't have a long-term future as Prime Minister, I'm going to resign as your party leader, but what about the argument which will be made today that in the short term, in a period of huge instability, an element of stability would be the Prime Minister
period
who's
of
been the
huge
Prime Minister for the last
instability,
few years,
caused by
carrying on
you
for a few more
fucking
months,
making the
rather
country
than somebody
fucking
new coming
unstable
in,
with your
trying to
fucking
work
madness.
out how to do the job. A big job, we should emphasise, before someone else was to take over. So that's where the argument is playing out right now, and they're confident at the moment that having said what he has said this morning, there'll be enough people who don't want him to stick around as Prime Minister, but would be happy to serve for a period of a few months.
It raises lots of questions, Chris, to say the least. Obviously, we'll need to wait to see exactly what the Prime Minister says when we expect him to appear here in the next hour, maybe.
Next
an hour and a
hour.
half.
Okay.
We don't know the
Well,
time
listen,
yet, precisely.
I'm going to disappear now.
But I'm just wondering what the public makes of this. We've had this array of Conservative MPs and former ministers saying that they don't think he's fit to be Prime Minister. They question his integrity, they question his honesty, they question his competence.
If you want to watch me
Are the viewers, therefore, are the voters going to just understand that people are therefore happy to step into government with him again for a period of months? It's quite a big thing for people to take on.
It is. And if we take just a couple of steps back, so is the idea that a man who won a general election with a stonking majority 2.5 years ago, biggest Conservative majority in a very long time, should find himself in the predicament that he is in, for all of the reasons that you set out, in a relatively short period of time. And when we were talking on the News at 10 last night, we were hearing, weren't we, from in there, the argument that said they appealed to the mandate the party had secured under his leadership just 2.5 years ago. Equally, yes, of course, our viewer might ask, well, hang on a minute, if people have considered and concluded within the Conservative Party that he really ought to go. Can he sustainably carry on until the autumn? I think in a practical sense, Hugh, the crucial test there is, can he assemble a government? That's question one. And they're going to endeavour to prove that, I think, in the coming hours. In fact, I'm just going to have a look in my inbox to see if I've received anything in the last few minutes. I haven't as yet.
So we're just seeing images there, Chris, of Boris Johnson visiting a medical facility, a testing and vaccination centre. And that, of course, is one of the elements of policy that he's really underlining and saying, well, OK, you may have questions about my performance in some areas, but on the big issue of COVID, for example, he maintains he's done a good job, and some of his own colleagues also maintain that he's done a good job. There are plenty of other areas, of course, where that isn't the case being made by those colleagues and former colleagues. What do you expect him to be able to say when he appears later about the reasons he's going? Now, that's the crucial thing. What will he acknowledge to people, to voters, those who voted for him in 2019? What will he acknowledge as some of the reasons why he's having to leave?
So I'm speculating now rather than knowing for certain what he will say. But I would have thought he will say, look, what was the central plank of his pitch to be elected, re-elected as Prime Minister in 2019? It was that phrase, wasn't it? Getting Brexit done. Now, my goodness, we can have, and we regularly do, have long discussions about the elements of around Brexit, not least the Northern Ireland Protocol, that remain very problematic. But in a legal sense, he did deliver on that promise. A period of huge noise at Westminster and a lack of resolution about the UK's departure from the European Union was delivered after the big mandate that he got in 2019. He also made a promise to the Conservative Party that he could win in a way that others hadn't been able to, and he was able to do that. But his party then concluded that he was a great campaigner but not great in government. That was the view of so many within the Conservative Party, and that he had delivered what they had wanted him to deliver. Plenty of Conservatives were always very clear-eyed when they selected him as party leader about his strengths and about his weaknesses. And in many senses, and perhaps it's the case of all of us as characters, our strengths can be our weaknesses and vice versa. And I think that's the kind of conclusion that Conservatives have come to. They now have a profound responsibility, both Conservative MPs here at Westminster, then the Conservative Party membership around the UK, round about 100,000 people, by definition a tiny sliver of the UK population, and also by definition an a representative sliver, because they are card-carrying members of a single political party. They have the awesome responsibility in the coming months of selecting a new Prime Minister on behalf of the rest of the country.
Let's pause for a second, because what I want to do is bring in one of the people you've just mentioned, one of the Conservative MPs, and we're going to talk to Chris Phelp, who actually resigned, I think, this morning. I'm just trying to keep track of all the list of resignations, but Conservative
morning,
MP
yes.
for Croydon South. Chris, thanks for joining us. Just remind us again why you decided that you needed to resign, I think, as Technology Minister, yes?
That's right. I resigned very early this morning as Minister for Technology and the Digital Economy. I'd been agonising over this for a time. I obviously felt personal loyalty to the Prime Minister who had appointed me. I was very, very respectful of the fact he got a general election mandate. I was also working on some important projects in government, a review of the gambling legislation, which is due to come out very imminently, and the online safety bill to keep our citizens, particularly children, safe online. It's coming back to the Commons for report stage next week, so I was very mindful of my duty to do those things, but eventually I felt the questions touching on ethics and integrity and the functioning of our constitution were just so overwhelming that for me the elastic snapped, and that's why I resigned this morning, and I sent a message to the Prime Minister very respectfully and politely suggesting that he should go. But I reached that decision, sorrowfully, reluctantly. Took me a while to get there, as you will have seen or gathered, but I think it was the right thing.
When you mentioned ethics and integrity, at what point did your concerns kick in about Mr. Johnson? Have they been there for months, or, what kind of timescale are we talking about here?
Well, I think I was very perturbed by the whole Owen Paterson situation last, whenever it was, October, and I made my views very forcefully known to the Whip's office at the time. But I think, we know what the issues are, we don't need to rehearse them again, and that's why I made the decision I did this morning. But we should, I think, just keep in mind Boris's achievements, that landslide election victory, getting Brexit done against the odds, the vaccine rollout, and we've got, more people in payroll employment than ever before. So he's got some fantastic achievements, and I think we should just keep those in mind, as well, obviously, as the issues that have led us to where we are now.
Do you think it's appropriate for him to stay in office as Prime Minister until the autumn? Is that something that you think voters will understand?
Well, I haven't really got my head around that question, to be honest. Obviously, traditionally, Prime Ministers, when they've gone, have stayed on in a caretaker capacity. Theresa May did that, so did David Cameron. I understand people will say these circumstances are a bit different, but I haven't really got a strong view. I haven't got my head around the question, to be honest. I'm just sad not to be working on those projects I mentioned, the gambling review and the online safety bill, which I think are really important for the UK, but ultimately the decision I made was that the wider considerations outweighed them.
OK, well, you've made that point very clear, Chris, and viewers have heard that. I'm just going back to that question I asked earlier, because it is a crucial question this morning, and it is a debate that's ongoing, as you will be more aware than anyone else as a Conservative MP. If you're really pressed on this by colleagues of yours and asked, do you think that there should be a caretaker Prime Minister in the next few months, or do you think Mr Johnson should stay in Downing Street until the autumn, what would your answer to that be?
Well, I've already said I haven't really got my head around the question. I can't see an immediate reason not to follow the precedent I mentioned earlier. The most important thing is we manage to keep the government functioning on a day-to-day level. There are obviously some departments that have no ministers, DFE for example, so we need to get that sorted out pretty quickly. I think we need the leadership election and process should happen, I think, as quickly as it reasonably can. We've got to make sure we make the right choice, but we should do it as quickly as we're reasonably able to, so we can bring the party together and move on, because there are around about 2 years left on this mandate. We should serve the British people and get done all the important things that we're doing. I've mentioned a few of them, I won't repeat them, but we need to keep that in mind and make sure we're delivering for the public. That is the priority after all.
But just thinking about viewers watching this, many of whom will have voted for Mr Johnson back in 2019, you are saying very openly, and you have done repeatedly, your letter was very clear, you have concerns about the Prime Minister's ethics and integrity, and yet you're happy for him to stay in office for another few months. What are people to make of that? How are they to understand that?
Well, I think there's a big difference between being a Prime Minister, and he was talking a few weeks ago about serving until the 2030s, versus just acting in a caretaker capacity for a short period of time, not introducing new policy, not introducing new legislation. Theresa May did it at the end of her time in office. Obviously, there were different issues there, but I mean, if you think about the last days of Theresa May's time in office, it wasn't a particularly happy situation. So, look, there is precedent, but the main thing we need to do is make sure the government functions on a day-to-day basis. The legislation that's in flight needs to be completed. We need to make sure the basic machinery of government works, get a new leader elected, bring the party and country together and move on. That's what we need to do. But we should also just respectfully keep in mind what Boris has achieved, because he has achieved some impressive things and we shouldn't forget that.
Just very briefly, Chris, if I may, just to end, is there someone who commends themselves to you, to the post of Prime Minister, somebody who you consider to be an outstanding candidate?
I haven't given that any thought. I only resigned from the government 4 hours ago, so I haven't thought about it. I was literally up to my elbows in technical detail on the online safety bill until 8 o'clock this morning, so I haven't given that any thought.
OK, you've not given that any thought at all, Chris Philp. Thank you very much. The former Minister and Conservative MP, Chris Philp, thanks to him for joining us. Right, well, let's at this moment, it's 11:15, just bring you up to date if you're just joining us here on BBC News. We're expecting a statement from the Prime Minister, the outgoing Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and the outgoing leader of the Conservative Party here in Downing Street sometime in the next maybe hour and a half. I actually don't know, I'm just guessing, but that's the kind of timing we're working to. And in the meantime, of course, a sharp eye is being kept on all of this across the UK. Yes, we're in the middle of the Westminster bubble here, but what happens here in Downing Street will have a huge impact, of course, as well in terms of politics and policy across the UK. So with that in mind, we're going to cross to Bute House in Edinburgh, where Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has been making her views clear about what's been going on and talking to BBC Scotland's political correspondent, Phil Sim.
Well, the chaos and complete lack of integrity that has characterised Boris Johnson's premiership has in the last few days descended into complete and utter farce, and all at a time when people in every part of the UK are really struggling with very real challenges. So I think first and foremost there will be an overwhelming and very widespread sense of relief today that Boris Johnson's time as Prime Minister, which should probably never have been allowed to happen in the first place, is coming to an end. I do think it is quite incredible, though, to suggest that he will remain as Prime Minister for another 3 to 4 months. I think the sooner he is out of Number 10, and preferably that is today, the better. For Scotland, though, we're going to see in the next few months one Prime Minister that we did not vote for, replaced by yet another Prime Minister that we did not vote for and would not vote for, even if given the chance. This is about so much more than one individual. For Scotland, the Westminster system doesn't represent our best interests, and that is why we don't just need a change of Prime Minister or a wider changing of the guard at Westminster. I think Scotland needs a permanent alternative to Westminster, which is why the independence choice is so necessary.
So you say you shouldn't stay on as an interim Prime Minister. Does that mean Dominic Raab would be your man for the job?
Well, I wouldn't choose any of the Conservatives as Prime Minister. I wouldn't choose to have a Conservative government. Scotland hasn't chosen to have a Conservative government. So this is not really about my ideal scenario, but I do think, given that Boris Johnson has so clearly lost the confidence of the UK, and I think that's been the case for some time according to not just opinion polls but recent by-elections, but he has also lost the confidence of the House of Commons and his own party. It is just, I think, an unsustainable proposition to say that he will continue to inhabit Number 10 for 3 to 4 months, particularly given the character and personality of Boris Johnson. I'm not sure that anybody could look at Boris Johnson and conclude that he is capable of genuinely behaving as a caretaker Prime Minister. He will want to do things and in the process of that undoubtedly cause even more chaos than he has already. So the interests of people in all parts of the UK surely must be to bring this farce to an end and to bring it to an end without any further delay. But the very idea that you're putting that legitimate question to me, if not Boris Johnson, then who? Is it Dominic Raab? For me, really does underline this point. Scotland wouldn't choose any of these people to be Prime Minister. And that's the problem here. We're looking at this Westminster system and the chaotic Westminster system that it's become, and it doesn't represent what Scotland, or a majority of people in Scotland, want, believe or value. And that's not going to change with the departure of Boris Johnson. The Westminster system is broken, and it's that system that we need an alternative to for Scotland, because inherent in it is a very, very profound democratic deficit.
Nicola Sturgeon there, the First Minister of Scotland, talking just a short while ago up in Edinburgh, and really making her views very clear about this change, which we're looking at today, and making the point that, from her point of view, that the policy is the problem, not really the personality in many ways, that they question the policy and approach to devolved issues, and indeed, of course, down the line to any potential future referendum on independence. Let's go over to the green outside Parliament and talk to the Conservative MP for Winchester, Steve Brine. Steve, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Would you be happy for the Prime Minister to stay on in Downing Street for another few months?
No, and I don't think my constituents will either. I've just been in the tea room in the House of Commons, and there is a gathering view. There are dissenters to that view, of course, but that this is not really sustainable till the autumn, given the extent of the lack of confidence that the parliamentary parties expressed. But, so it's not really for the Prime Minister to set that timetable, to be honest. He's tendered his resignation as the leader of the Conservative Party, and it's now up to the 1922 committee to work out that process. And I know that they are meeting literally as we speak to talk about things like the threshold of the number of MPs that any candidate would need to get before they can put their name forward. We can't just have a wacky races of 20 candidates here. We need those that are serious about being the next Prime Minister and actually have a chance of doing so, and doing so credibly.
What are you saying to colleagues of yours, such as Chris Philp, who was talking to us right in that spot just a few minutes ago, saying that there was no problem if the Prime Minister was just sort of, caretaker in a sense for the next few months until a new leader was in place, that people would understand that, voters would understand that. You reject that case?
Well, I was standing right next to Chris when he said it. I mean, look, this is not looking after a Championship football club. This is no disrespect to a Championship football club. This is the government of the country. You know, this is the Prime Minister. And I mean, just listening, and I did catch the end of that interview there with the First Minister of Scotland, who of course wants to make this about, who knew, her pet subject, which is let's get out of the UK. If ever there was reason to get a grip and get things together, there's a really flashing example, isn't there, that you just heard there from Nicola Sturgeon.
I just looked at, I think it's your last tweet at the moment, Steve, which says, very proud of Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid this evening, so this is yesterday, albeit later than many of us would have liked. Now let's turn the page. So let's think about that mechanism of turning the page. What does the Prime Minister need to say when he makes a statement in a short while here in Downing Street?
Well, I think he needs to show some humility to the position that he's in. I think he quite rightly can point to a number of successes. He's served as a public servant for a long time, obviously as Mayor of London and as Prime Minister. He won a big mandate from the British public, and you know, there are lots of successes, and Chris pointed to some of those in your previous interview.
He didn't win a big mandate from the British public. He won 43% of the vote. His party won 43% of the vote. That's not a massive mandate. Don't talk bollocks. 57% of the voters voted against the Commons. So shut the fuck up.
But you know, you can't say what you said yesterday and then suddenly be okay with it today. So I just think, you know, he needs to strike the right tone as a leader that understands it's time to hand over the reins of power in a dignified way, because that's how we do it in this country.
That's how we do it.
And
so
then the
I've got a question for you.
Needs to move on very, very quickly, and I think there
would
is a huge appetite to move on
prefer me
quickly.
to do
if this was
talk along with the BBC? I'll leave this on like in the background, so I'll be able to go to it when we get footage of number 10. The door opening, but would you like me to listen in on this and comment on it, or would you like me to listen in on the James O'Brien show with just a normal background and with a picture background, obviously, and comment on that? So it's up to you. Let me know in the comments. Would you rather I switch to the BBC or BBC News, or rather Hugh Edwards there outside number 10, or would you rather that I switch to James O'Brien? Yes, says Jacob Platt. It was an option. Not a yes, no answer, please. No capable leader is likely to lead the Tory party, as it's so deeply rooted in self-deception. James O'Brien for Mitchie back. Okay, one more vote for James O'Brien. Pineapple Boys quoting James O'Brien. So I think a lot of you are listening to James O'Brien anyway. So let's do that. I'll set that up for you while this guy chunders on about a load of bollocks, because that's what they do. These fucking Tories. Fucking shut up. Alright, I'm just going to make the bad man go away and replace him with Big Me. Hello. And then I'm going to go and fetch some James O'Brien. If you give me a moment to do this. You can talk amongst yourselves. It's like the bit where it went quiet for a bit. I forgot to put that. But I forgot to put the sound on. But we've had some votes for James O'Brien. So there you go. That suits me. Okay, so James O'Brien is talking to somebody at the moment who is not a big Johnson fan by the sound of things. So I'm just going to raise the volume. I'm just going to tentatively
talk of Captain Hindsight or talking nonsense about Keir Starmer voting to stop Brexit when Boris Johnson himself was the biggest fly in the ointment of Theresa May's attempts to get Brexit legislation over the line. I think that shamelessness has gone now. I mean, I hesitate to put it in such terms, but he's a brilliant liar. And even if the next one is a liar, they won't be a brilliant liar, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but the con has been established, hasn't it? I mean, they're still continuing to kind of cash in.
Why would they remain of it?
I think, and they wouldn't be there, would they, necessarily in the positions where they could throw their tattered hat in the ring if it wasn't for him having put them there. So, and you mentioned about how Murdoch and etc. have kept people in power. Yes, but the authoritarian laws that the government are bringing in, especially in terms of trying to overturn the Official Secrets Act, to try and further clamp down on journalists telling the truth.
I'm not across that. I'll take your word for it.
Oh well.
Yeah. I mean, it's been.
I'm looking at protest, and I'm looking at the European Convention on Human Rights. So there's plenty of stuff that I am across. Again, I wonder how much of this will remain in place because it's red meat
The funny thing
politics,
is, this whole time that I've been talking to you, I have had James O'Brien in my ear, so I've been trying to talk. I'm listening to this at the same time, and produce the show, and think of what to say. Who says men can't multitask?
The scale of this disaster may prove to be a good thing in the long run.
Your sound is a bit better. I don't know what you're trying to say there.
Talking about the disaster of the
Job
last
is a lot
3 years,
louder
to
than you.
stop
Okay,
blathering nonsense about
I'll turn him down a little bit more.
Calls right, or
Lee's a good
the
sound
ludicrous defences that they've tried. He's made such an almighty mess of the final page. Is that better?
There you go. I should be a bit louder than them now.
Well, I don't think they will.
I want full power with the sounds. I don't know why it's so loud. If I press the...
The problem is the public are being held hostage by the legacy of that.
Maybe I accidentally knocked the game.
I mean, believe me, I get called anti-patriotic.
I'm not going to change it now. Sorry if that's making horrible noises.
I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Both sides, actually, because everywhere's kind of...
Let's see your comments. Okay, says Peter Chan.
The problem is, I see the type media going to get.
With respect, it's not how a lot of people see it, especially in the South. Labour must give Remainers a reason to vote for them.
I feel a little bit hypocritical cautioning people about using the phrase.
Well, I'll see. I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it because obviously I've got James O'Brien at the same time, but I would have made the same decision as Starmer because they've got to win the next election. And if Boris Johnson or whoever replaces him gets to say he wants to take your Brexit away, that will embolden a lot of the Gamony people who vote for Brexit to go and vote, and there are more of them than there are of us. That's not an opinion; it's just counting.
And oddly, it was a journalist on one of those newspapers who drew my attention to the possibility that the scale of this.
There are YouTube streams that are showing the number 10 door live.
Pretend that this is some sort of rebellion.
Lee, if I had an engineer with me in the room who could change the background so it was the live feed, then I would do that. It's just little old me, so I'm leaving it. As you can pretend this is a live feed if you want.
See it as a positive for party unity, and
maybe I'll try and make it look like a bird flying past.
Maybe even out loud
comes out.
About the damage that he's
it's not still.
I don't know. That's probably
things are happening. Look, the curtains are twitching.
It's a corrective to Tanya's pessimism. It's 11:31. Holly Harris is here now with the
headlines. Here's the headlines.
The Prime Minister is expected to officially resign when he makes a statement today. More than 50 MPs have quit their
resign
as
Prime Minister
2 days in protest at the Prime Minister's determination to stay in office.
Party.
The final straw was when his newly chosen Chancellor, Nadhim Zahawi, publicly urged him to go now and with dignity. It's now believed he's agreed to step down as Conservative Party leader and Prime Minister. He's
Prime Minister
to stay in place until the autumn when a new leader
Prime
can be
Minister.
Chosen. But most of his party want his departure to be swift and power to be handed to a caretaker leader.
Yeah.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says Boris Johnson was never fit for office.
He was never fit for
Khan,
office.
Mayor of London, has called it one of the most shameful sagas in the history of British politics.
Yes, it is.
Most areas fine
it's
and
like the
dry,
Perfumo affair on
spells.
fucking
Cloudy in the
steroids.
far northwest with some patchy rain. Feeling warm in the sunshine, a high of 25
We
Celsius.
can't run scared of the gammon. They see that as weak. I don't really. Oh Christ! I'm giving you adverts. Knock that shit up. No, I'll see. What I'm saying is that this isn't about showing the gammon who's boss. They have the numbers in a democracy. In the democracy in which we live, unfortunately, the people who want Brexit, they want it more than their grandchildren to have a decent life. So they really want Brexit. They outnumber us. There is a glut of baby boomers who vote. Older people vote more, and old people vote for Conservatives more. And although we have seen in the recent by-elections what could happen if they go into an election, with the current lot that they've got in now, they will get absolutely decimated. But if Starmer says we are going to take the UK back into the EU in any way, shape, or form, then it's not just the gammon, the Tories, whatever we have to worry about. It's also the newspapers. We've got to play a bit of real politic here. The newspapers are owned by 4 non-dom scumbags who basically run everything. You've got Evangelos Lebedev, who I've mentioned a lot this morning. We've got that absolute fucking cockhead Rupert Murdoch, who's 91 years old and somehow not dead yet. You've got the Barclay brother. There's only one of them now. And you've got Lord Rothermere, and they're all scumbags. They're all absolute fucking rich, horrible scumbags. And they will support Boris Johnson to the hilt. They'll support, getting rid of Brexit. They'll support Brexit to the hilt because it's what they think that their readership want to read, even though apparently Lord Rothermere isn't a particular massive fan of Brexit. His newspapers, the Mail in particular, have done more than any other to promote his ideal of Brexit being the most wonderful thing ever in all the world ever. Which it isn't. But yeah, the point is that giving the Tories the ammunition to say they want to take your Brexit away from you is very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. And yeah, I've said this before. I said this earlier this week on Twitter. So I think my anti-Brexit credentials are pretty fucking sound, pretty solid. But I would do that. Hate the game, not the player. But I wouldn't give the Tories the ammunition to get away with that shit. I just wouldn't do it. Politics is a marketplace of opinions. Yeah, but it's not just politics, mate. It's the newspapers. It's the tabloids. It's the machine of Murdoch with his talk radio stations and talk TV, and obviously GB News, which isn't Murdoch, but it's just a conglomeration of horrible little twats, probably from other countries, who want to destroy ours through bullshit about woke and fake manufactured culture wars and trans panic and all the other shit that they keep throwing at us. Oh my God, there's people using the toilet. I don't want them to use the same toilet as me. The government are actually bringing in a law to say that all new builds have to have a dedicated men's toilet and separate women's toilet now. So, like on the train for the last 200 years, they've had a toilet and, anyone's been allowed to use it. Yeah, those days are going to be over. When you build something now, it's going to have a dedicated male one and a dedicated female one, just to keep the fucking, the woke watch people happy. Okay, we're getting some more reporting here from LBC, so I'm just going to turn that on.
Here, he's been busy replacing
about Boris Johnson being busy replacing.
It's been reported, for example, that Greg Clark, former business secretary, is going to replace Michael Gove as the levelling up.
Oh my God! So he's got a new levelling up. He's fucking nuts.
Trying to assemble something of a cabinet that
he's
thinks
nuts.
He can limp to the autumn.
Absolutely fucking nuts. No, get out. I love that. In a way that I love that he's humiliating himself more by going in this way, but at the same time, I'm kind of freaking out a bit that he's not just going.
And it being Boris Johnson, I don't think I'm beginning to think he won't.
Jason's saying, I find it utterly hilarious that Zahawi blackmailed Johnson into giving him the Chancellor role to the Truss.
It's his modus operandi, it's what he's always done. How many jobs does he have to
Maybe he's not going today at all.
54, I think, was the latest tally. Although there were some who said,
see if he says that about not ruling anything out, then Boris Johnson or whoever appointed him say he's trying to take your Brexit away. Just leave it. The first thing we've got to do is get the Tories out by any means necessary. Get the Tories out, and we can worry about everything else.
Ministers quitting, including the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Brendan Lewis, and these are jobs that need to be filled imminently. There's been some talk even from some of those who stepped down, well, if he continues or if a caretaker comes in, could they then go back to their jobs? Because we're hearing talk around Westminster, there are departments with only one minister left. There are departments where meetings can't take place. Business,
government's ground to a halt because one man's ego.
Because there's no
one man's ego. Putin, Trump, Johnson. One man's ego. And the death and carnage that results.
We will hear from the Prime Minister in that time
in that wake.
60
in their wake, I should say.
83 minutes remaining. We do not know, although the clever money at the moment suggests that we will.
So hopefully, yeah.
Something else, of course, happened yesterday. I don't know if you noticed, but he
admitted about Russia.
Conceded in the select committee
about Russia
that he had
in Italy
indeed met with
Alexander Lebedev.
Lebedev Senior at the Tuscan Villa.
You know what he's going to say before he says
his
it.
security detail present on his way
Tuscan Villa at an orgy, at a cocaine-fueled orgy.
Attempt to poison the Skripal family in Salisbury. And now that's an interesting revelation for a number of reasons. I mean, most obviously the security threat that it would entail.
Yeah.
But he also claimed, and it's just kicked off.
Without his
Yvette
security
Cooper's been asking about it in the House of Commons. This is a really helpful, just to take a moment away from the fray, as it were, of the unfolding resignation, the will he, won't we. But this is huge, but it's a really useful
he talks really slow, doesn't he?
Of just how awful he is as a man and as a Prime Minister.
Get on with it.
Because already today, Yvette Cooper has stood up in the House of Commons and raised the Prime Minister's admission that he met with a former KGB colonel without any officials being present.
Yeah.
I'll say that again. He met with a former KGB colonel who's actually now been sanctioned in Canada because of his continuing proximity to Vladimir Putin. Boris Johnson, when he was Foreign Secretary, I'll say that again.
Cocaine-fueled orgy at a Russian spy
met
house.
with a former KGB colonel whose proximity to Putin has now seen him sanctioned in Canada without any officials present.
Yep. Just after the Skripal poisoning
it's
as well.
not a million miles away from what Priti Patel had to resign for when she was in Theresa May's government.
It's worse.
Gabby Insleff of
The
Guardian raises a ridiculous prospect.
Israel
he might stay on as a caretaker and then end up having to resign again over something else.
I don't know if Israel are interfering in our politics.
Incredible. So the Foreign Office Minister, there's still a few left there apparently, Vicky Ford, suggested in the House of Commons moments ago that the Prime Minister had reported his meeting with Lebedev to officials. She's now had to correct that because we're talking about Boris Johnson, to say that the Prime Minister thinks he reported it. Who do you expect to step forward now when it comes to really holding the feet of this ludicrous man to the fire? Yep, you got it, the MP for Rhondda, Chris Bryant, who has checked and who has found and who has reported that Boris Johnson did not register the meeting with Alexander Lebedev. He cannot have notified his officials because it's not in the FCDO published transparency records for ministers' meetings. Wow. No words. 11:40 is the time. 03456060973 is the number. Are they going to be able to wash this away? Are your Sunaks and your Javids, your Zahawis and your Bravermans, are they going to be able to wash it away? The facilitation of Boris Johnson's premiership, the forelock tugging, the cap doffing, the cheerleading of people like Oliver Dowden. I don't know is the short answer from where I'm sitting, but do we think that they can? I suspect they can. I can't see every single one of them being followed around by the stench of their collusion with Boris Johnson for the rest of their political careers. In a just universe, they'd never be able to escape that shadow. But this is not a just universe. And as I keep reminding you, it's a universe that many people still view through the profoundly distorting lens of the ludicrously biased pro-Brexit, pro-Boris Johnson right-wing media. Front page of the Daily Mail today, and I am not joking. Boris stares down the mutiny. And then page
Boris
after
stares
page
down the
after
mutiny.
page of
Oh my
paeans
God.
and praise.
Yeah.
Pathetic.
Stares down.
Duncan's in Bakewell. Duncan, what would you like to say?
I sometimes do call into the show, but I very rarely get on. It's quite difficult, so I usually don't bother.
That you give have been fantastic, really. For all of us who felt it.
I only really call into James O'Brien when I feel like I've got something different to say than what anyone else has said. Have a unique perspective on it. I called in the other day to talk about Starmer and his Brexit stance.
I'm morbidly entertained over the past 24 hours. During his tenure, the amount of rubbish that we've had to deal with, it's almost the point where I've looked at the past 24 hours of saying, get the popcorn.
Apparently, the Benny Hill theme tune is being blasted out by Steve Bray. While Tories are trying to do interviews for Sky News.
Because there's so much going on, it's so important from an economic
and it was requested, special request by Hugh Grant.
Perspectives as well.
Love it.
issues with climate change and environmental crisis that we're at this situation where we have to constantly go through, and it's all due, I think, in many respects, to his relationship with the truth.
Yes. This is what Heseltine said. And we forget, don't we? I think we get our faces so squashed up against the screen, we sometimes lose sight of the big picture. It's because he lies as easily as we breathe.
Exactly. And I think that you made a really good point just then about the point of the other members of his parliament who have now resigned. What does this mean for them? Can they wash off this stain, this metaphorical stain? You know, it's
like
to do
thinking
with
about
that
Boris
truth
Johnson's
again, because I honestly
stains.
think that his
Trumpian.
lack of relationship with the truth.
Where's my hair
he's
gone?
like Lionel Hutz off The Simpsons.
Attorney
where he said
bylaw,
many years ago
in-law.
in one episode, there's the truth, and then there's the quote-unquote truth. And I think that's the way that Johnson plays this out. The interesting thing is, I don't think he understands, A, the damage that he's done to the Conservative Party, and B, the damages that he's done to the perception of politics and politicians in general, particularly with the young population, who must now think, well, if these people have already supported him, and then when all this information has come out, the facts, the truth has come out, then they have to turn coat on this. How can these individuals be trusted?
I know. How do you step down?
You can't trust
I
the
know.
Tory.
I mean, it is
You can't
as if
trust
the
the
truth
Tory.
has become negotiable. Speaking of
that's
which, do you
just a
think this
fact.
is true or a very bad joke? Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm hearing whispers that James Cleverly is to become the Secretary of State for Education.
What? Oh my giddy ants! What the fuck?
Dominic Raab.
Yeah.
James
My
Cleverly.
initial thought was, surely he's going to need a caretaker to oversee him in that role.
Cleverly. Education.
Even Harold Pinter didn't think of that.
Oh my God.
Oh boy, Duncan, thank you.
The only final thing, James,
Carry
I'll
on.
say is
Oh
the other thing that's interesting. One final quick point is what analogy will he come out with in this resignation speech? I'm sitting at my breakfast table at the moment, looking at one of my daughter's books, Mog the Forgetful Cat by Judith Kerr. And I don't know
Lee,
whether
I'll
it's
take
like
Rob.
it'll
I'll take
reinforce
anything over
something
Boris
or
Johnson.
draw
I'll
that
take a
kind of
tub
thing.
of
What
lard
kind
over
of,
Boris Johnson. We
analogy
need
or
this to
metaphor is
come
he gonna
out.
utilise
He
to
does
kind of
not
explain
play
his way
by
out of
the
this in the
normal. He
resignation?
does not operate by the
I mean, he'll try,
laws,
you're right,
by the
though.
rules
He'll
of
try and
normal
pull one of
life.
his
We need to get
well-established
rid
tropes
of
out
Boris
the hat,
Johnson.
whether it's
He
the
needs
sort of,
to fucking go.
The cheeky, mischievous schoolboy who's been caught with his hands in the biscuit tin or whatever it is. There won't be integrity, there won't be honesty, there won't be decency, because there never was, which brings us back to all the people claiming that they've had to resign because of the sudden discovery that there was no integrity, honesty or decency in Downing Street. I don't know how they missed what was going on there for the last 3 years. I really don't. Wait, of course, I do. It's 11:45.
This is LBC.
Okay, just going to knock the sound off there because we don't need to listen to the adverts. There's a tweet from 2 hours ago from Dominic Cummings, the fucking rat boy, privately educated shithole, who came here to Durham when he thought he had COVID. Put his young son, 4-year-old son, in the back of his car and drove in a hot box of known COVID and the unknown effects of COVID on children, because at that time we didn't know what it did. And he drove all the way up to Durham to spread the virus far and wide to here in Durham. What a cunt. And then he said, but I was testing my eyes. He says, evict today or he'll cause carnage, in capitals. Even now, he's playing for time and will try to stay. No dignity, no interim while leadership contest. Raab should be interim PM by the evening. The absolute fucking lunatic, Lord Moylan, is being laughed at because last month he tweeted, he will be Prime Minister long after you have ceased to edit the Yorkshire Post, to the editor of the Yorkshire Post, to which James Wong, the editor of the Yorkshire Post, has just retweeted that and wrote the words just over a month at the top. This is there's a lot of stuff going on with people recording emergency episodes of their favourite politics shows, podcasts, comments, things like that. So thank you for joining me for this one. If you're chosen, this is your chosen, what would we call it, poison, which is great. Keir Starmer tweeted earlier today that the Conservatives have overseen 12 years of economic stagnation, declining public services and empty promises. We don't need to change the Tory at the top. We need a proper change of government. We need a fresh start for Britain. There you go. What the fuck is happening on Sky News? This is from Fancy Brenda. Beth Rigby, mid-speech about the political political crisis. Oh, what's that? Kay Burley holding a coffee. It's a bullfinch, isn't it? Yes, it's a bullfinch. A bullfinch. Beth. Oh God, totally distracted then. So they're talking about the birds, and you thought this stream was a bit ad hoc. But yeah, we're going to see Boris Johnson resign as Prime Minister. Well, as leader of the Conservative Party today, and hopefully as Prime Minister. But he is going to fight till the very end. He is going to cling on there like a horrible little Klingon. Here's James O'Brien.
I have 2 phone lines free if you'd like to grab
he has
one
has
of them.
2 phone lines.
I've
I've got nothing to add. That's the thing. I would call him, but I've just got. What do you want me to say? Boris Johnson's a scumbag. Well, we know that. We know that.
Fooled you. I'm going nowhere. James Cleverly is Secretary of State for Education.
Boris
Nadine
Johnson
Dorries is
doesn't look like
Chancellor
he's
of the
going
Exchequer,
anywhere.
and Jacob Rees-Mogg is going to be Foreign Secretary. Stranger things have happened. Seems unlikely. Kit Malthouse is the new Chancellor for the Duchy of Lancaster. Speaking of irredeemably awful
The
politicians,
Boys a couple of weeks ago or last week when the guy who can run really fast, A-Train, grabbed the guy and just dragged him along the ground.
Utterly abysmal people
absolutely annihilating him in the process.
That I forgot to include you when I was
that might be required. Does anyone know who can run? Someone who can run super fast. Kit Malthouse becomes Chancellor for the Duchy of Lancaster.
Johnson, Kate Hoey completely deserves her place.
Greg Clark is the new Levelling Up Secretary, replacing Michael Gove. Jesus Christ! Do you think Johnson will stand down as MP as well as being PM? If he does, he will not try to backstab the next PM. I don't think he's going to stand down as anything today. He's announcing his new cabinet. He's not going anywhere. Cunt, fucking cunt.
And then fired
Chill some fucking rosé for that
made me smile.
Fucking cunt.
But it means that Greg Clark has
Sparkling
replaced
rosé.
Michael Gove as Levelling Up Secretary. Sir Keir Starmer has made a statement which we will listen to shortly, in which he has, I think we can forgive him today for a statement of the bleeding obvious, pointed out that Boris Johnson was never suitable for high office, for public office at all.
I just read that out, mate.
Resignation as party leader is imminent, but quite what that means in the context of a caretaker government or Boris Johnson trying to hang on is
he's going to try and hang on. He's going to try and hang on to the bitter end. That's what he's going to try and do.
Unbelievable that we are.
It is not unbelievable, James. It is completely believable because it's Boris fucking Johnson. What's unbelievable is that people are putting up with this shit.
Except the truly.
They go, well, you know, what can we do, right?
Dregs,
Boris?
like James Cleverly and Greg Clark would also have called for him to go immediately. Go now. Do not hang around. But he seems set on hanging around.
Hanging around like a bad smell.
3.5 minutes of the Labour leader Keir Starmer talking just a few minutes ago. 10 to 12 is the time. Let's have a listen to that.
Here we go.
He needs to go completely. None of this nonsense about clinging on for a few months. He's inflicted lies, fraud and chaos in the country. And, you know, we're stuck with a government which isn't functioning in the middle of a cost of living crisis. And all of those that have been propping him up should be utterly
And he's a massive cunt.
12 years of a stagnant economy, 12 years of broken public services, 12 years of empty promises. Enough
Jeff,
he'll
call up Putin and tell him to use a tactical nuke or something.
It's much more fundamental.
Doesn't care how many people get killed.
We need a change of government.
He'll just let them fucking die because he's a fucking psychopath.
It doesn't look like he'll get a general election if he just swaps leaders.
He needs to go. He can't cling on in this way. His own party have finally concluded that he's unfit to be Prime Minister. They can't now inflict him on the country for the next few months. It's obvious he's unfit to be Prime Minister. That's been blindingly obvious for a very, very long time. And if they don't get rid of him, then Labour will step up in the national interest and bring a vote of no confidence, because we can't go on with this Prime Minister clinging on for months and months.
Well, I was saying this about a vote of no confidence, but someone said that you could only have that against the government, you couldn't have that against the Prime Minister, and I think that's true.
Conservative Party, they're tearing each other apart. And what we've got in the middle of a cost of living crisis is a government that can't
recovery from
function.
COVID.
And that's why I say he can't cling on now. They've declared him unfit to be Prime Minister. They can't inflict him on the country for the next few months. If they don't get rid of him, we will bring that vote of no confidence in the national interest. because we can't go on with this broken government led by this discredited Prime Minister.
Boris Johnson, in some ways, was your biggest asset if you were going to go to the country. When you lose him, you will have more of a problem, won't you?
No. Look, the Conservative Party has been in power for 12 years.
And they've been really
12 years of a stagnant economy.
Yep.
12 years of broken public services. 12
promises.
years of empty promises. We need a fresh start. And that's why I say changing the person at the top of the Conservative Party is not the fundamental change that we need. We need a change of government. We need a fresh start for our country.
It's how Keir Starmer
It doesn't look like you will get the general election you would want
his intonation,
now, does it?
Starts off and then it fades out as he
The
talks.
country's crying out for change. We've been stuck with a government that's not been functioning in the middle of a cost of living crisis. And now changing the person at the top of the Conservative Party is not going to make any difference
strange
whatsoever.
cadence.
People want change, a
That's
fresh
the right
start
word.
for Britain. And that means we need a change of government. We need a Labour government.
Is there nobody that you would rate as a good opponent? Someone will be in against you?
For me, this isn't a question about who leads the Conservative Party. It's much more fundamental than that. They've been in power for 12 years of empty promises, broken promises, a stagnant economy, wages very, very low, inflation and prices through the roof. We need fundamental change. We need a fresh start for Britain. We need a change of government. We need a Labour government.
Lastly, I just want to ask you, given what you say about the government, you haven't cut through as you might want to. How can you do something about that now?
We've come from a general election in 2019 where we did very badly to local elections this year where we made considerable ground and a by-election win 2 weeks ago today in Wakefield with a huge swing to the Labour Party. So we're on track, and that's why we say the change we need is a change of government, a Labour government. We're ready for that.
Thank you, Mr Starmer.
Thank you.
Keir Starmer there.
11:54 is the time. Keir Starmer there in what is called a pooled clip, which means that it is one that is shared among all the broadcasters in the country. Back now to Downing Street, where Rachel Venables can bring us up to date with these new appointments. I mean, reshuffle seems like an inadequate word to describe what's going on now. Deck chairs on the Titanic perhaps is a little bit closer to the truth.
I can't believe he's
you better
doing
tell us who it is. And
Stop saying you can't believe he's doing it. Of course he's doing it. It's Boris Johnson.
Well, when I raced here, James, a couple of hours ago, expecting resignation day, I didn't also expect reshuffle day, but that is what's happening. Boris Johnson, inside number 10, has made a number of appointments. We know he's got a lot of spots to fill. In the past few minutes, we've heard that James Cleverly has been appointed to Education Secretary. He's replacing Michelle Donnellan, who quit after less than 2 days in the role. She who took over from Nadeem Zahawi, of course, who is now...
Yeah, Yovash, the plea for us to rejoin the EU has to come from the people. It has to come from the people. It's the only way. It can't come from above. It can't be placed upon us. It's got to be a popular uprising like against the poll tax. We need to start taking to the streets and possibly causing a little bit of,
that is the most senior minister
noise
in the Cabinet Office after the Prime Minister.
And what happens to, I mean, I
Until
don't know if anyone knows
din
this is such
becomes
uncharted
so
water,
loud
but
they can't
all the other
ignore it
appointments as
anymore.
well, are there going to be enough MPs left? Or will people that have called for him to go agree to be... So Zahawi stays, does he, despite having demanded the departure of the Prime Minister?
I think that's the big question, isn't it? And at the minute, we just don't know if the two of them will be prepared to work together, whether Boris Johnson is happy to continue with him as Chancellor, whether he's happy to continue as Boris Johnson's Chancellor. That's what to play for. But
he's just dragging everyone down with him, isn't he? Like a drowning man clinging on to someone else and drowning them at the same time.
Enough, at some point he'll run out of ministers, and he talked about how don't underestimate the wealth of talent in the Tory.
It's like if Hitler went around shooting everyone in the bunker before he shot himself.
People to take those roles, and he believes that he can fill. He's got enough people available to fill those spots to allow him to cling on for, I think, in his mind, the next couple of months.
And yet the clamour seems to be, the sources seem to be saying that nobody really wants him to hang on until October, except, I suppose, the people that he's now giving he's now promoting way beyond their capabilities, although I wouldn't expect to comment on the last bit.
Oh, thank you very much for $750 Taiwanese dollars, I guess. Hi, Graham. This is Samuso, but paying on different accounts due to overseas issues. Thanks for all your hard work and keeping us staying. Oh, no worries, man. No worries.
Challenges, and one of the things he has to be able to demonstrate to the country, to the Queen, to Parliament, is that he's got a functioning government. So first and foremost, he is trying to back up with cabinet ministers, the men and women really who will help him run the country. The secondary point, I think it might be, you could say to that, is of course he's got the MPs to support him, and that's where this line from Sir Keir Starmer talking about a vote of no confidence in Parliament becomes very interesting, because that is where enough of his MPs could turn against him, and that could force his hand far sooner than he wants.
Rachel Venables, we'll talk again. Beth Rigby's just reported that the speech is expected at 12:30, so keep an eye out for that.
Okay. Well, you got us for another half an hour.
Sky News. Again, Rachel won't thank me for it, but she has stepped into the breach this week in a characteristically professional.
I don't know if I should get the champagne or not. Is it champagneable? Because he's not actually going to fucking leave. He's just saying he's going to leave, but he probably won't.
Theo's been a bit poorly, as he shared with you on Twitter yesterday, although I think he did manage to
never
break
wanted
his
someone to fucking cark it so much in my life.
And Ben Kentish on scheduled annual leave, which has meant Rachel's had to pick up the baton. But my goodness me, she has run with it in a expected but brilliant fashion. And some of those new appointments, we've got James Cleverly to Education, as she just told us. The former Justice Secretary Robert Buckland has been made Welsh Secretary. I don't get this bit. I got to be honest with you. I just don't understand, and I'm a fairly well travelled chronicler of Boris Johnson's madness, but I don't get this. I don't see what this is designed to achieve, unless it is as pathetic
Let's put my camera
as
on the table.
Having his eye on the calendar and being desperate to appear on Wikipedia for the rest of his life as having been in post for
You can drink champagne from now until the replacement gets in the door.
Can't seriously be
Can't afford that kind of money.
As if he can hang on for another couple of months after resigning, then he might somehow be able to unresign. I think even by the standards of Boris Johnson's madness, that would not be in his head. So all I've got now is that he is desperate to hang on longer than Neville Chamberlain did, which means at least another 48 hours.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
A coalition would come after the election, Jim Bob.
From Global's newsroom at midday.
And then they can blame everything on the Lib Dems.
Boris Johnson will be making a statement this afternoon, widely expected to be his official resignation. More than 50 MPs have quit their government roles in the last 2 days in protest at the Prime Minister's determination to stay in office. The final straw was his newly chosen Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi, who publicly urged him to go now and with dignity.
Dignity, like Boris Johnson knows the fucking meaning of the word dignity.
The mechanics of that departure from number 10 remain unclear. He's understood to have spoken to Sir Graham Brady from the 1922 committee about staying in place until the autumn to allow a new leader to be chosen. But some of his party want an interim leader to be chosen instead.
Yes.
As does Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, who believes Boris Johnson was never fit for office.
What we've got in the middle
of thank you, Samu.
Is a government that can't function. And that's why I say
I mean, cables mixed up.
They declared him unfit to be Prime Minister. They can't inflict him on the country for the next few months. If they don't get rid of him, we will bring that vote of no confidence in the national interest, because we can't go on with this broken government led by this discredited Prime Minister.
Boris Johnson is now making new cabinet appointments, hoping to shore up support and allow him to stay in power while the leadership contest is decided.
No.
Greg Clark will be the new Levelling Up Secretary,
No.
replacing Michael Gove.
No.
James Cleverly is the Education
No.
Secretary, the third
Make the
in 3
bad man
days.
go away.
And Kit Malthouse is
Third
Chancellor
in
of the
3
Duchy
days.
of Lancaster,
Third
the most senior
Education
minister in the Cabinet
Secretary in
Office
3
after the
days.
Prime Minister.
Oh
But
my
former
God.
Deputy Prime Minister Lord Heseltine has told James Boris Johnson's leadership...
We should leave with Dignitas. Yeah, that'd be great, Austin. Honestly, don't want this person to still be alive anymore.
When convenient and disregard when inconvenient.
Whenever someone says say something nice about Boris Johnson, my only thing is one day he'll die. Jim Bob, electoral coalition to oust the Tories before government, problematic with you joining Lib Dems. Labour need to be honest about customs single market at least. They'll use it as an excuse to get their base out at the moment. Tory voters are demoralised. We have to keep them demoralised and keep them from fucking voting in the next election. I'm sorry, you don't change people's minds. You don't change people's minds by... so I'm just going to turn that off because that's going to go to adverts now. You don't win elections by changing people's minds. There's no such thing as a floating voter. It's just people who can be asked getting off their arse on polling day and going to vote. And this is what Stacey Abrams did so brilliantly in Georgia, where they managed to get 2 Democrat senators elected to the Senate in America. In Georgia, which is a notoriously, red, what do they call it? Fucking arsehole state, the Republican state. It's about getting your side out and getting them motivated to get out. And I understand the argument, and I've used it myself in the past, about not being able to get people out. Oh, hang on, my girlfriend wants to come in. Come in. She's worried about making noises. Hello. I'm just talking. He's going to leave at 12:30, so half an hour. But he's not going to leave as Prime Minister. He's just going to say he's going to resign in the future, in October. Well, he's put like Kit Malthouse in a position in the cabinet. He's apparently there's a new education secretary, the 3rd in 3 days. It's all a bit, oh my god, yeah, embarrassing. No, I was just talking about the next election. If Keir Starmer should basically join in with the chorus, saying that the single market and the customs union is the only way really of going forward with our economy. And I know that's right, and I kind of want that to happen. But at the same time, I don't want the tabloids and the Tories and all the grandees and all the money to be screaming, "He wants to take your Brexit away."
So there's a middle ground and say, I'm going to find the best way to move forward without rejoining the EU, not rule out the single market, not rule out the customs union.
Yeah, that's what someone said in the comments.
Say, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's what someone said in the comments. But...
There you go.
All right, well, 1:30, and then hopefully I'll be done soon after that. I'll come up and get the champagne. It's actually Cat. It's actually rosé. It's sparkling rosé.
Sparkling rosé. Woo!
Class. One step up from White Lightning. Okay, I'm going to go back to the James O'Brien show now.
Repair the damage, because what I've been feeling today is, there's still people yesterday.
To join a voting pack, we would join Lib Dems. It's ammo for the Tory press.
I'll come back to you if I can, because
a voting pack. It'll be unofficial. It'll be unofficial. They just won't put much effort into campaigning in certain constituencies. I think that's the plan. It's an James Cleverly, that was it.
Begin with it, if I
James
may.
Cleverly, the new Education Secretary.
Right now.
Well, I'm feeling that this is the right thing for the country and our politics. I mean, Liberal Democrats have called for Boris Johnson to go for months and months and months, and we've been increasingly angry that the Conservatives have just kept him there. And frankly, the whole Conservative Party is to blame for this chaos. They put him there in the first place. They propped him up, even though he was lying and law-breaking and incompetent. And the fact we've got, millions of families and pensioners facing cost of living emergency, and they've been totally incompetent in dealing with that. We've got the NHS in crisis, record waiting times for cancer, for ambulances, for GPs. They are failing our country. And so it's not just about Boris Johnson, James, it's about the whole Conservative Party.
And this is not a criticism that anyone could level at you or indeed at Keir Starmer, but the sense of suddenness, the scales have fallen from eyes with amazing speed, because as you've just alluded to, he told us who he was a very, very long time ago, and some of us believed him. Lots of people didn't. These are your colleagues, quite possibly even your friends, who have facilitated and been cheerleaders for this man, who have all of a sudden seen what you have been describing to them all along. How are you responding to that discovery?
Well, James, it's not a discovery. Many of us have watched this man throughout his career, when he was Mayor of London, before he was Mayor of London, And then, of course...
Hi up, Charlie. Thanks for the super chat, mate. We're just listening to James O'Brien at the moment. Apparently Boris Johnson is going to make his statement at 12:30, but he's not really going to resign. He's going to like half-arse resign. He's going to say, well, I'm going to stay on as caretaker PM until my replacement is found, and he'll scrabble about trying to find a way of staying in power. In the meantime, probably by getting his mate Vladimir Putin to drop a massive bomb on Ukraine and kill many Ukrainian women and children. Because that's the kind of shit that this fucker does. He did actually kill 180,000 of us in this country with his absolute ineptitude when it came to guarding us against COVID.
They kept coming in front of the TV. 4 radio microphones.
Thank you, Samu. It's 20 quid in English money. Yeah, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. If anyone else wants to throw a super chat in, really appreciate it. Boris is the same as Trump. Everyone knew he was a cunt since the 1980s. Yeah.
Your colleagues, and I spoke to
so I'd say it's not unbelievable.
Last week, and he talks about the people who will clutch their pearls in private, but who in public.
I just texted Kat to say that the new education secretary is James Cleverly, and she works in the education sector. So she's
there will be people with whom you've broken bread or enjoyed a convivial glass on the terrace, and yet they've done the things that you describe rightly in fairly despicable terms.
Yeah, well, to be honest, those Conservatives who might send and receive Christmas cards from, most of them were thrown out of the Conservative Party by Boris Johnson. Let's remember, this isn't the Conservative Party that many Conservatives have voted for. Lifelong Conservatives are now realising this is a Conservative Party that's very different. This is Boris Johnson's Conservative Party. And even when Boris Johnson goes, it will still be Boris Johnson's Conservative Party.
Yeah.
Many of the people accept his style of politics, his beliefs, anything goes. And I'm afraid that's why the Conservative Party needs to get voted out of office.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's not going to happen anytime soon. And this cabinet reshuffle suggests that Johnson is doing what Johnson does, which is playing for time, even in these remarkable circumstances. Let me bring the ghost of Dominic Cummings to proceedings and tell you what he said in the last half hour. He says, I know the guy, and I'm telling you, he doesn't think it's over. He's thinking there's a war. Weird stuff happens in a war. Play for time, play for time. I can still get out of this. I've got a mandate. Members love me. Get me to September. And Cummings warns that if MPs do leave him in situ, there will be carnage. Are you worried about this possibility of him trying to kind of
clock is right twice a day?
Well, I'm not a fan of Dominic Cummings.
Well, no, you and me both.
Here, pray in the background there.
The clock is right twice a day, Ed.
Yeah,
I just said that.
He doesn't. You've got to say he does know Boris Johnson well, having worked with him so much.
Yeah, this is Boris Johnson's latest fucking
giggle. I guess, on this at least.
Right, I'm not going to open the fucking fake champagne.
My worry. I mean, the idea of Boris Johnson as a
I might crack open a can of beer.
It's obviously happening, though.
Nice
the reshuffle is going to be doing cabinet at 3 o'clock with 5 people who have called for him to go.
A caretaker who's not cared about anything in his life except himself, right? That's what we've got. And, you know, if the Tories go along with that, well, shame on them. If they allow him to stay in office one more hour, one more day, well, they need to carry the blame for that as well. And I think the Conservative Party need to have it hung around their necks. They allowed him to get into place in the first place. They've allowed him to stay in power for so long. And if they allow him to stay now, I mean, you know, we need leadership. The country's in crisis. I think an interim Conservative government, while they choose their next leader, is a much better prospect if it doesn't have Boris Johnson in it.
Sorry, David, leader. Oh, hang on, one more. Surely your chances of repeating Tiverton and Honiton and building upon these amazing gains that you've made in by-elections recently, surely those chances are enhanced by having Johnson in Downing Street. I mean, I appreciate it's a price you're probably willing to pay, but it is going to change the game slightly.
Well, you know, James, a lot of people have been saying that to me and asking that question, but they should have knocked on the doors that I knocked in Cheshire, Amersham and North Shropshire and Tiverton and Honiton, where we beat the Tories in their homelands. And there were some lifelong Conservatives, absolutely, who wanted Boris Johnson to go and hoped the Conservative Party would go back to what they used to remember. But there were a whole lot of other lifelong Tories who blame the Conservative Party, because it's not just the last 2 years of Boris Johnson as a Premier, but they've seen Conservative MPs, Conservative councils, Conservative councillors take them and their communities for granted for years. And I think they've worked it out now. And if Liberal Democrats can go out there, put our constructive, positive alternative, show that we can have the real champions for their communities, I think we can still win lots of seats off the Tories. We will win lots of seats off the Tories.
Sarah Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, many thanks indeed. I'm no Sherlock Holmes, but I think Steve Bray might have got his loudspeaker back, judging by some of the noise in the background down there on College Green. And I mean, remarkably, as I just mentioned there, you've got a cabinet scheduled for 3 o'clock, at which 5 people sitting around the table told the Prime Minister yesterday that he should resign. And yet this caretaker cabinet is coming into place. And you know the opinion I hold about Dominic Cummings. I've made no
For fuck's sake, just get rid of the cunt! Just get rid of him! He's a fucking virus! Get him out of British politics! Get him out of British life! Deport the cunt back to America so he can get fucking shot by some fucking lunatic with an AR-15! Because that's what they fucking do over there, the mad bastards!
Damage control mode.
Fucking hell.
As Emma points out in a message, not packing up mode. He will be thinking, hang in there, keep me in place, things might turn around. And that is exactly what Dominic Cummings has just warned about.
It's the UK version of Trump's coup. It is. Absolutely.
I mean, presumably it would have to unfold
Charge of the lightweight brigade, indeed.
A confidence vote that Keir Starmer is talking
My dream is that someone sticks a mic in front of Alex Seller's opinion on Boris Johnson going, yeah, that would be brilliant.
Where is James O'Brien's Mystery Hour? I've tuned in and all I can hear is people droning on about politics. Gary, I don't know whether your tongue is in your
He's going to call the election at 12:30, isn't he?
Ian Warrington says, I've got a question for Mystery Hour, James. Is he still there?
I don't know if he can on his own.
Yes, although
maybe he has, because they changed the rules back in March.
On the steps of Downing Street in the next
to
20
get rid of the
or so. And a quick word
2011
from the,
Fixed Parliament Act.
Clown Corner. Gary's in Cornwall. He goes, you have blood on your hands when it comes to Boris's downfall. You are so unprofessional and narrow-minded, it's disgusting. You shouldn't ever be able to air your one-sided point views ever again. You're nothing but a bully. No prizes for guessing how your is spelt. And at least you can put the downfall on your CV.
Indeed.
Gary, mate, come here. Go and sit
Creutzfeldt
down.
Johnson disease.
Take 10 minutes, all right? Just breathe deeply. Give your head a little wobble. And then
the Conservatives will still be in power. But it doesn't look like he's leaving, mate. Dan, it doesn't look like he's leaving.
Have a little look around. Check out what's going to happen to GDP. Have a little look at what the multiple sectors are telling us about their workforce problems.
I'm not getting the champagne now. I've got some cheap champagne, some fake champagne.
Focus on what the
I'm just going to get a beer.
Is likely
I
to
think this is just a case of a cheers,
why the only
beginning of the end,
to do worse than us has had economic sanctions imposed upon it from outside, while the one led by Boris Johnson has imposed economic sanctions on itself. And listen,
I still maintain I was the first to talk about Britain putting economic sanctions on itself. I feel like James O'Brien stole that line from
why
me.
You support him. Ask yourself why you're sad that he's going.
Because he thinks of Boris Johnson when he can't get an election.
You're not allowed to.
That's why.
Parrot lies about vaccine rollouts or nonsense about Ukraine. Okay, and obviously you can't claim that he got Brexit done, because they're now threatening to break international law in order to get it undone. So we'll take those three complete...
Steve Bray's trending on Twitter again, which is good.
Just because I think this will be quite liberating for you. I think if you really do this, depending on how hard...
Labour Peer walks into lamppost after tense encounter with anti-Brexit campaigner Steve Bray. From yesterday. I missed that.
Venom out of the snake bite that Boris Johnson has administered to you over the last few years. Because if you do the things I've just suggested that you do, I think you'll feel a great burden lift from your shoulders, and you'll think, God, he's right. Why am I cross or sad about this? This is actually great news. So just to run through it again, go and sit down in a darkened room, take 10 minutes of deep breathing, then give your head a wobble, turn the lights back on, get your bank statements out, get your utility bills out, have a little look at how your personal financial situation is.
59.
Then get online, have a little look at what...
I think he will handcuff himself to the fence behind him. But, according to the new
institutions in the world are saying about the British economy,
protest
including the British
he
government's
could be arrested for that.
Analyses. Ask yourself why from farms...
It'd be really funny if he's taken down by his own fucking oppressive protest act.
Have a little look at the countries that have also dealt with COVID, that aren't dealing with any of the problems or anything like the scale of the problems that we're dealing with, and then seriously just say to yourself, why do I like this guy? Why do I support this guy? Why am I cross with James, who I wrongly think has played any sort of significant part in Johnson's self-immolation? And if you ask yourself that question, I honestly think that you'll be free of this ludicrous mindset that you've boxed yourself into. And you know what? You don't even have to thank me later.
This is LBC.
Hello, I'm Albert Einstein.
Oh.
If you
No, you're
already have
not
a smart
Albert
meter,
Einstein.
This is excellent.
Don't lie.
because by
Don't lie. Don't talk to me about smart meters. Oh man, this is painful. This is fucking painful. So thank you for joining me. It is Thursday, the 7th of July, 2022, and we are living in a strange times, or interesting times, as the famous curse made up by Terry Pratchett stated. May you live in interesting times. And we are certainly in interesting times at the moment, where we have Boris Johnson, a man who 59 people from his government have resigned in the last couple of days, including his new education secretary, Michelle something, who was there for one day. One day she was in office as the education secretary, and now she's resigned and apparently been replaced by James Cleverly. Was it nominative determinism? Yeah, bullshit. Boris's downfall was that 80-seat majority. If it had been 5 or 10-seat majority, something. Sorry, that got taken off by someone else's comment. Sean, in a moment, he will handcuff himself to the fence behind you. Yeah, read that one. I heard you on James O'Brien the other week. He didn't want to believe they were evil. He thinks too highly of them. Love him though. Listen every day. Yeah. I when he asked me why they're doing it, I said because they're evil. I wish I'd given him more nuanced answer, but he kind of blinded him because I thought I was just going to talk about Ukraine and what I'd done in Ukraine and stuff, and try and big up the charity that the crowdfunder that I set up with Kim and the van driver and Bear and Gordon, and which is UK4UKR.com, by the way. We're trying to save up for another trip. We're out of money at the moment. Gordon went over last week or the week before. Basically, that's it now. We were actually putting our own money into the trip to buy the tickets and the fuel and everything else. It's just so expensive to go over there. So we are starting the fund. Basically, if you go to the website now, if you go to UK4UKR.com, you'll see that the thermometer at the bottom is set for, I think, £2,500, which is how much we reckon we need to do another trip out there, drop supplies off, pick refugees up, take them where they need to go. So basically, when that gets to 100%, then we'll go out on another mission. I was hopefully going to talk to Rob Rinder on Talk Radio tomorrow about what I've been doing in Ukraine, but I have the feeling I'm going to be bumped for what's been happening in Downing Street, and we're back in the room.
Take another break.
Okay.
And we probably won't take the headlines.
Not going to take another break.
We are expecting Boris Johnson to step onto the tarmac outside Downing Street and deliver his resignation speech, although I have to tell you that there are now whispers that worries in number 10 about him going off message and departing from the script that has now
he's not going to stay on message.
Pippa Crerar of the Mirror reporting that he's tweaking the statement, and there are now worries that he might go off message, which is
of course he's going to go off message.
Giving me a tiny pause on the comments I made at the top of the show about yesterday looking briefly as if we might discover what the British equivalent of the January the 6th coup attempt is.
Yes.
Just and listen, don't.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the numbers. You see, he doesn't have the numbers.
Much more portentous than I intend.
That's the thing.
There won't be a coup attempt in the sense of an armed mob storming Downing Street or anything like that, or storming Parliament.
Yeah.
But prompted by, in the case of January the 6th, prompted by the president. Tom Swarbrick's just tweeted rather cleverly, "What's the betting that Johnson's statement will make things worse?"
Yes.
Distillation.
I think it will.
My thoughts at the moment.
I think it will.
Would desperate self-interest look like in the current context? I think we've spent 2.5 hours,
what are we doing?
or the best part thereof, presuming that the desperate self-interest has actually expired.
No.
But it will never expire.
It will never expire.
And that
he will cling on for dear life.
The idea that he will be doing what he always does, which is just cling on there,
hoping
that the tide
things will
goes
change
back out again. Unbelievable. Peter was cut off in his prime for Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. Talk to me, if you would, Peter, about these people trying to wash their hands in public. My fear is that they're going to get away with it.
I think so, and I suppose my worry is that the public are going to carry on believing them, because yesterday, to me, it was clear as day that this was it, that, he'd been caught lying, there was nowhere else to go, but there were still people saying he's got Brexit done, he's given us a vaccine, he gets things done. Well, I wouldn't want his job. Would you want to do his job? And I'm like, well, no, but You know,
Yes, I would do it. I would do the job. I would do the fucking job, and I would do a much better fucking job than Boris Johnson. Do you know why? Because I fucking listen to people, and I'm not a sociopath. There you go. 2 things there, and I'm not a pathological liar. There you go. Three reasons why I'll do a better job than Boris Johnson. 3 reasons why nearly every single man, woman, and child on this fucking island would do a better job than Boris fucking Johnson. Sorry, I'm not going to go at the caller there. The caller's fair enough. They're just saying what other people say. Like, who else would want to do this? I'm like, I'll fucking do it.
Polling will appear, but it won't address directly the question of regret. Oh, hang on. The lectern is being wheeled out.
Okay, the lectern is being wheeled out. Right, I'm going to grab a beer. I'll be back in a moment, okay?
How are we going to know?
There is a lectern. There is a lectern. 1 second, just going to grab a beer.
That's the only time that we're really going to find out. And as you said yesterday, I think it was another caller, that things, you know, they kind of calmed down. And, you know, people were saying about keeping him in place and then he'll face Keir Starmer in the general election. But by then, they've sort of been forgotten. People forget things, and it's no longer that fresh news story anymore. It's now something else. And I think the only way we can really find out for sure is to go for a general election. But I think what we need to do is stop talking about the Conservative Party and start talking about this Conservative Party.
Yes, that's a good point.
Looking at Rory Stewart, this isn't his Conservative Party at all. And I think we need to remember that we don't want, like with Brexit, say to people, well, that was wrong and all Brexiteers are, you know, whatever, are racist, because it's like saying this Conservative Party, all the Conservatives are wrong, and it's not. It's this Conservative.
Yes, I mean, I mentioned yesterday I've never been able to get on board with an Irene Bevan's description of the Conservative Party as being collectively and completely lower than vermin. I mean, whether or not it's because of my own sort of friendship circle or job, I don't know, but they're nowhere near all as awful as this current iteration. And I think history, hopefully, will judge harshest the ones who are taking jobs now. Do you know, when I was at school, the head of house resigned. And it was unheard of. It was the final nail in the coffin, actually, of the housemaster's career. If you can't find out, and everyone agreed before he resigned that no one would take the job. We were absolutely fascinated to see what would happen there. And of course, someone did take the job. Let's go to Rachel Venables, who's outside Downing Street, where it looks as if things are likely to happen sooner rather than later, Rachel. This is where Nick Ferrari, were he here, would say we can get a man on the moon, but we can't get a line 1.5 miles down the road. So Rachel's just dropped. People talking about defiance, probably expected. Boris Johnson will talk about still having a job to do. The fact that literally nobody wants him to carry on doing the job, or next to nobody wants him to carry on doing the job, probably won't touch the size of his self-regard. There's quite a crowd gathering at the gates of Downing Street. A little bit of history due to unfold in front of us. Staff have gathered now outside, which is a sort of traditional mark of the...
Okay, I'm going to go to the BBC feed now, which you'll see in the background, and I will shrink myself down. There might be a little bit of a delay, there normally is. On this, there's usually a little bit of a delay, but we will
be crossing line any minute now.
I'll try.
5 minutes.
I'll try and
Street. Okay, Rachel Venables is there.
Sync it up as good as possible.
It's happening sooner rather than later, Rachel.
Okay.
There's a huge amount of stress and excitement here. You'll be able to hear behind me the photographers liaising with the Downing Street team about the exact placement of the lectern in front of that black door to number 10 Downing Street. In the past few minutes,
I'm going to switch my feed from LBC to the BBC in a moment.
The number 10 team, so PPS's, the remaining staff who still work here, they all came out and they're lined up now on the street, facing the lectern, waiting for the moment that Boris Johnson arrives. And then to my right, as I look down, I can see yet more men and women stood out watching again. So they're clearly expecting an announcement any minute from the Prime Minister. He, of course, having just announced some key new positions as he reshuffles his cabinet.
What a fucking lunatic.
They were expecting this to be a resignation statement of sorts, talking about his departure as Conservative Party leader.
It's everyone else's fault but mine.
And that cabinet reshuffle, so to speak, suggesting that he certainly is intending to be a caretaker who, as Ed Davey told us a few moments ago, who has never cared for anybody in his life, or never taken care of anybody in his life.
That's very
We're talking
true.
minutes, are we, Rachel? We're talking, or even seconds, because if the staff have gathered outside, then he's essentially waiting in the porch for the get-go.
Yeah.
So
So
12:30
we'll
on the dot, do we think?
Hello, Rachel.
12:26 is the time. The technology that presumably because of the weight of bandwidth
So
deployed by all the other
the
broadcasters.
sound that I'm getting here from LBC is a minute
Speaking of which,
behind.
I'm off to see Olivia Rodrigo tonight, which will be a rather nice bit of light relief from
Okay,
proceedings.
I'm going to switch to the
Yesterday,
BBC.
an hour in
Hope you don't
Newry.
mind. I'm just going to turn
Margulis's company, which
I'm gonna
was a
turn
beautiful distraction. from
James off. Okay, here we go. Sorry, James. Okay, and then we will bring up the sound of the BBC. The dulcet tones of Hugh
Nick Eardley, our
Edwards.
political correspondent, has joined me as well. And Nick, it's one of
Right,
those days
can everyone
where
hear me? Can everyone hear?
we sense that big things are about to happen.
Hugh?
We're not quite sure in what terms the Prime Minister will actually introduce the notion of his own departure, and it's not just a question of tone, it's also a question in this case of precisely what his plans are and when precisely he thinks he'll be out of office.
And that's not completely in his hands, Hugh.
Fucking
So
arsehole.
the expectation is the Prime
Fucking
Minister will say
absolute
he's going to
fucking
stand down
clanging
as Tory
fucking
leader to
arsehole.
start
Boris
an
Johnson to
election
resign.
contest.
That is such
He
a
would
great
remain Prime
headline,
Minister in the
and we can't
meantime.
even fucking
Firstly, there are
celebrate
a
that
number of
fact
Conservatives
because
just been on the
Boris
phone
Johnson
to
is
some of
such a
them, saying they
cunt.
think
He won't even
it's
let us have a
untenable,
good
the idea
time
that he
when
would
his
stay in office
fucking
for
horrible
a few weeks or even a
administration
few
is
months.
falling apart.
Secondly, it's not up to
This
him
to go
because
towards
the
buying a bottle of
1922
Tesco champagne,
committee,
not that old
that
Aldi
committee of
shit.
backbenchers we've heard so
Thank you
much
very
about
much for
in
the
the
super
last
chat
few
there,
days, they
Sean.
decide the timetable.
Rich Pincher is still
They
an
could
MP.
decide on
Yeah.
quite a quick
Isn't that
timetable
mad?
if they
Isn't that
agree
mad, Richard?
those
Isn't that
Tory
fucking
MPs.
crazy?
This needs to be over.
Still an
and be
MP.
over quickly.
Still an MP.
Just some of the shouts going on here, just to explain to you that this is all to do with setting the lectern in exactly the right place in Downing Street, because lots of the photographers here understandably wanted put in exactly the right position. It's a great view we have, because we've got Horse Guards Parade and all the stands in place for the beating retreat and all the other ceremonial glories that are being played out on Horse Guards at this time of the year.
It's
And
actually
that is
surprisingly
right at
cold
the,
here in Durham. I wish I hadn't worn a
right
t-shirt.
to the left-hand side and just behind the big
Just a few
wooded
comments.
area
Even if when
of the Downing
Johnson
Street
goes, human
Guard.
rights denied,
And
rather
then we
still
can
there.
see
The
at
whole
the top
party
of
needs to go
frame,
permanently. I
Whitehall
completely
itself,
agree. It's the
with
first
the
step on
cenotaph
that
just out
road.
to the right-hand
Sean
side,
says Boris
and
rocks
the,
out, pissed drunk
tribute
and
to
roars
the
about
women
cunts,
on the
fucking
left-hand
plebs and
side,
slab
and the
bastards.
big white
Yeah,
building
I
of
can
the
see
Ministry of
that.
Defence on
But
the
don't curse
left,
too
and
much with the
the
pearl
Department of Health
clutches.
there on the
Indeed.
right, just to give you
Might
a
want
sense
something
of
stronger,
some
Graham.
of
No,
the
I'm just.
geography as we see this. Of course,
Tequila.
lots of
I fucking
this,
hate tequila.
Nick,
We've had the
part
bottle
of
of
the
tequila
ceremonial
for like
route,
4 years because none of us want to
which
fucking
the Prime
touch
Minister,
it.
an
I got
outgoing
some famous
Prime Minister,
grouse.
is very familiar with, because
of
of course
whiskies.
it's that route to the palace to see Her Majesty if there is an opportunity at that point to exchange the seals of office. But that goes to the heart
Tells
of
you
today's
all would make it
debate
an
about
offence for
Boris
certain
Johnson's
organisations to
decision,
reveal restricted information.
that for all kinds of
Jesus
reasons that he may
Christ.
actually want to express in his statement, he feels that he should
Scrutinising
be
eye of
allowed
public
to
interest
stay
journalism
on,
exposed
which
countless
is why, of
scandals
course, we've
with
had
this key
these
tool holding
cabinet
power for the
appointments
council now, the
today
Fairbairn
as
Times.
well.
Yeah.
So
we need
we'll see
them.
exactly how
we need to get
he
rid of them.
wants
This
to
is
present that argument,
Boris
not
Johnson
just to his own colleagues in
is
the
the
party,
keystone. You know when you
and
have
not just
an
to other
arch,
parliamentary
top
colleagues,
arch is called the
but to the
keystone.
country,
If you
because
take that
this
out,
is
the
a
arch
speech
collapses.
to a much
He is the
wider audience
keystone
than
to the
Conservative
Tory
MPs.
party. He needs to be taken
absolutely,
out.
and I
He
think
needs to be
part
taken
of what
out.
Boris Johnson will try and do over the next
Doris and
few
Carrie
minutes is
stood
to
next to
try
each other,
and
his
explain
two
to the
lovers.
country what he thinks he's achieved, what he thinks he could still do in the next
The
few
trick of
weeks
tequila
before
is
he
being quick with the
departs
lemon.
as
Indeed.
Prime Minister.
Just watch out if you're
he's been a
watching the
divisive
feed on
politician.
something else
Boris
and it doesn't
Johnson
have
has
the
always
same
been
delay
divisive.
that I've
But
got
just
here,
watching
because this
now
is
in the
still
street, actually
saying
his family
this
coming
is
out,
and the
senior
clock here
ministers,
is still saying
his wife
12:29.
carrying
So obviously
one
this is a
of their
couple of
children
minutes
coming
behind.
out into Downing Street as well. On both
There's nothing I can do about that.
sides,
That's just the
we're
BBC
sitting, our
iFeed that I'm
ministerial
getting.
teams out to see
It started,
the Prime
says Lee
Minister's
Corr.
final words.
So yeah, you can either listen to him there or you can listen to me calling him a cunt
look at the crowd
here
outside
live.
the number 11 because we have
Oh,
Carrie Johnson.
God.
We have,
she looks like one of those
little baby,
mummies.
and we have
Carrie Johnson, you know, where the sort of it's melted away and it's just exposed. But
colleagues. So all of them, Nick, now here to witness what is, for them, surely a moment that they didn't think they'd be witnessing at this relatively early stage in a Prime Minister's career.
It's remarkable to think that it's only been 2.5 years since Boris Johnson won that incredible majority which gave him the chance.
Mr. Fuck Pig! Hello, Mr. Fuck Pig! You are a fuck pig! You are a pig of fuck! You cunt! You shitbag! It's clear that you're a cunt! You fucking cunt! You absolute shite cunt! Fucking fuck off! No one likes you! You're a cunt!
Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now. And the timetable will be announced next week. And I've today appointed a cabinet to serve, as I will, until a new leader is in place.
Fuck off now! Fuck off now! Fuck off now! You lousy cunt! Fuck off! Fuck off, you lousy cunt! Fuck off! Fuck off! And fuck off again! Keep fucking off till you're in the fucking sea, and then fuck off some more, you cunt!
1979. And the reason I have fought so hard in the last few days to continue to deliver that mandate in person.
It's because you're a narcissistic cunt!
I wanted to do so, but because I felt it was my job, my duty, my obligation to you to continue to do what we promised.
No, it's because you're a narcissistic cunt, you mad, pathological, lying, psychopath cunt!
From getting Brexit done to settling our relations with the continent for over half
Brexit, vaccines, Ukraine, Brexit, vaccines.
To make its own laws in Parliament, getting us all through the pandemic, delivering the fastest vaccine rollout.
Fuck off! No, you didn't! No, you didn't, mate. Just because your horse got over the first hurdle first doesn't mean it won the fucking national, you cunt!
Putin's aggression in Ukraine. And let me say now to the people of Ukraine that I know that we in the
Fuck off, you don't give a shit about the people of Ukraine. You have been in the pocket of Russians for the last 25 fucking years.
We've been pushing forward a program of investment in infrastructure and skills and technology, the biggest in a century, because if I have one insight into human beings, it is the genius and talent and enthusiasm and imagination.
You have no insight into human being because you aren't even a human being. You are a fucking sociopath. Fuck off out of fucking Parliament. Fuck off out of number 10. Fuck out of our lives forever. You cunt.
We will be the most prosperous in Europe. And in the last few days, I've tried to persuade my colleagues that it would be eccentric to change governments.
Shut up, you twat. Just walk away. Just get the fuck out of that building. Get the fuck away from us. Get the fuck out of London. Get the fuck out of our country. Fuck off.
And when the economic scene is so difficult domestically and internationally. And I regret not to have been successful in those arguments. And of course, it's painful not to be able to see through so many ideas and projects myself. But as we've seen,
like you ever give a shit about anyone else's idea.
It moves. And my friends, in politics, no one is remotely indispensable. And our brilliant and Darwinian system will produce another leader equally committed to taking this country forward.
Our Darwinian
through tough
system.
times,
What the fuck?
Not just helping families to get through it.
Leave.
But changing and improving the way we do things. Cutting.
Leave now, you insufferable cunt! Leave now, you insufferable cunt! Leave now, you insufferable cunt!
And to that new leader, I say, whoever he or she may be, I say I will give you as much support as I can. And to you,
like the support you gave Theresa May, you lying sack of shit.
I know that there will be many people who are relieved, and perhaps quite a few who will also be disappointed. And I want you to know how sad I am.
Relief doesn't cover it, you mad twat. You mountain of mad flesh. You fucking horrible boil. You canker. You syphilitic bag of custard.
Peerless British civil service for all the help and support that you have given our police, our emergency services, and of course our fantastic NHS, who at critical moment helped to extend...
You are destroying the NHS, you vile lump of foul deformity.
...that are so admired around the world, and our indefatigable Conservative Party members and supporters, whose selfless campaigning makes our democracy possible. I want to thank the wonderful staff here at Chequers, here at Number 10, and of course at Chequers, and our fantastic prop force detectives, the one group, by the way, who never leak. Above all, I want to thank you, the British public.
Fucking don't thank me, you infinite and endless liar! Just fuck off out of our lives forever! I'm sick of seeing your dickhead, fucking deformed, inbred, collapsing face! Fuck off!
The country will be carried on. Being Prime Minister is an education in itself. I've travelled to every part of the United Kingdom, and in addition to the beauty of our natural world...
What, you've been to Liverpool? Fuck you have.
Possessed of such boundless British originality and so willing to tackle old problems in new ways, that I know that
You're an old problem. I'd like to deal with you in an old way.
Our future together is golden. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
That's right. Off you fucking well. Fuck you. Fuck. I have an invisible can of beer. Need it after that. Fucking arse. That was short. Seems to go on for fucking ever.
Boris Johnson announcing that he is to resign as Conservative Party leader and eventually as Prime Minister. Nick Eardley, our political correspondent, listening to that with me. And,
eventually.
Just wondering, Nick,
eventually. I'm going to resign eventually. What a fucking cock. I did enjoy shouting at him. I wish he was there with Steve. With me little fucking bullhorn screaming obscenities at him.
New Conservative leader is found. We know that many in his party don't want that to happen, but that's certainly his intention. After that speech, there was a...
Can't hear you, mate. Can't hear you. Sort out your fucking audio. Sort out your fucking audio.
And talking about the herd. When the herd moves, it moves, was the phrase that he used. I think a sign there that he will say that this was about the Conservative Party rather than the country turning his back on him. We know
sorry, that sound isn't me. This is what's coming from the BBC.
Privately,
it's a bit shit.
And his allies publicly.
It's a bit shit.
He could still win an election, that he thinks he still has the backing of enough of the public to go on. So he is blaming the Conservative Party in essence. You heard him say that he's
blaming the
disappointed
Conservative
to be
Party.
giving up this job. Clearly, he's
bag.
Extremely reluctant to be doing this. He's been forced from office.
He's
by
been
what
forced from office.
The last couple of days. But a couple of things in particular that he wanted to talk about there, which Boris Johnson hopes he will be remembered for. One is
being a cunt, being a lying cunt. Fucking support for Ukraine after supporting the fucking Russians for 25 years. Oh yeah, cry me a fucking river. Aren't you a fucking hero? Absolute fucking cunt.
And that phrase levelling up, that was
levelling
Boris
up.
Johnsonism. That's something that he is proud
That's
of.
why we should change that to reboot Britain, or just anything other than levelling up.
The melancholy in that tone.
Fucking hell.
Boris Johnson is not a happy man to be moving
Right,
on.
I'm gonna switch the sound over to LBC now.
I wonder whether that's the kind of relaxed attitude to the way this has developed that is properly reflective of what's going on.
Very Churchillian, that, Rachel. Let's not forget his great ambition to emulate Winston Churchill. Them's the breaks.
Them's the breaks. And so different. I sat here, I think, 2.5 odd years ago when Theresa May made what was the equivalent speech announcing that she was on the way out. And do you remember her voice broke at that moment when she talked about how proud she was to have served the country she loved? And it looked as though she was choking up and starting to cry. Boris Johnson could not have been more different to his predecessor in that statement there. I don't know if you picked up in the background, there were jeers and boos from a huge number of men and women in the crowd who gathered just outside the gates of Downing Street.
More draconian laws will be introduced, yes. Richard, absolutely, that's going to happen. What's the ugly brown patch behind Downing Street? Looks like
flooding. That speech, she was applauded by members, the new members and the old members of the cabinet, the ones still there.
Carrie Johnson, his wife.
I read earlier
in,
that Boris
on the
Johnson
sidelines
admitted
as well,
he met
supporting
former
her husband
KGB
with their
officer
new
Lebedev
baby
without official
daughter
presence.
in tow. She was holding on to
He
her.
did.
Boris Johnson
Immediately
now
after the
back
Skripal
in
poisoning,
Downing Street,
which a
back at
British
number 10
citizen
for
died.
now to continue government, to continue governing.
Churchill was a
while
lying
the
war
Tory
criminal
party
prick,
begins the
much
job
like
of trying to replace them.
Boris.
And that is a process which takes weeks,
yes, but
not days.
at least Churchill had some good points
I mean,
about
it
it.
depends. I think
Boris
this is going
Johnson
to be a
has
huge
none.
battle now behind the scenes. There'll be people who want this to go very quickly. There'll be people, Boris Johnson and his allies, you can assume, who'll want to drag it out until October. We do not know yet what the timeline is going to be. I think that's going to be thrashed out imminently. In the meantime, he, as far as he's concerned, is staying in number 10. The question is, will that happen, or will there be more moves to move him sooner?
Many thanks, and thank you once again for stepping into the breach in this most remarkable of weeks. Sun reporter Noah Hoffman, who's done some cracking work over the last few weeks, I think she's relatively new to the job, has just tweeted that a senior government source has messaged her to say that speech was and then a word I can't say on the radio under Ofcom regulations, that speech was an effing disgrace. And my initial instinct that was absolutely shocking. Not a word of apology. Graceless, vain, self-serving, narcissistic, and utterly devoid of repentance.
I didn't hear much of it because I was too busy
apology.
shouting
Not to
obscenities
mention,
at him, so I feel good about that
utterly
now.
devoid of any reference at all to the lies and the unravellings that have led him to this point. But I am a relative newcomer when it comes to analysing politics, and Andrew Marr is not. My colleague and of course with you live on LBC at 6 o'clock this evening joins me now. Gets a gut-shot reaction, if you would, to that remarkable the resignation speech that never used the word resign, I think, Andrew.
Well, I think in one sense, James, unremarkable. It was the Boris Johnson we've come to know. It was exactly what you would have written for him if you'd been script writing for him. Not a likely thought, I know, but it's exactly what you'd have expected in terms of tone. I think there is one really, really important and urgent unresolved issue there. I was talking to some very senior members of the 1922 committee of backbenchers. They're the ones who would have ousted him had he not gone today, and they're the ones who will have to meet him shortly to discuss the process of choosing a new leader. And they are unequivocal that they do not want him to stay on as a caretaker prime minister. They want him to pass the baton to somebody. It might be Dominic Raab, it might be somebody else, and now to go. They say he cannot take any further substantive or important decisions now as prime minister. It is over. So there's a real argument to be had there. He clearly intends to stay on till the autumn, when, of course, the party conference comes. Is he thinking one great final farewell at the party conference? You know, a sobbing, contrite, buyer's remorse gathering of the Conservative Party, and maybe, who knows, another turn in the story. They don't want that to happen, of course. Their argument is that in the next 2 weeks, they have time, however brutal and however fast it'll be, to select a final 2 candidates to take over from him. They then go to the party in the country. That's all the Conservative members in the country who get to choose in the final runoff. And that will take August.
Right.
So their argument is that certainly by the mid to late September, possibly even by the beginning of September, there could be a new Conservative leader in post, and that person will certainly oust Boris Johnson immediately from number 10. But their argument is that that is too long for him to be there for the rest of this month and through August is too long, and somebody else needs to take over, and he should hand the baton right now to Raab. And that's where the argument, I think, is going to be.
I mean, and it won't be a pretty argument, will it? I mean,
no, it won't.
It's cornered rat territory yet again. What does leverage look like then? What can be brought to bear? Because we've had a crash course in what a government abandonment looks like over the last couple of days. What weapons are left in the arsenal of the 22 and of colleagues past and present who are desperate to see him walking out of the door today?
Well, frankly, it's a collection of rather musty old muskets and damp powder, I think. You know, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, he's still Prime Minister in name, and he has that huge kind of machine under his bottom and with his hands on the levers, and they don't. All they can do is produce a new leader as quickly as possible. The new leader is then the Prime Minister. That will happen very quickly when it happens.
Right.
But they don't. They can't really threaten him with anything. I can't think of anything they could possibly threaten him with. You know, there are more stories. You were talking about the Lebedev story.
Yes.
I think the Lebedev story is one of the really, really important ones. And MPs, by the way, in the Commons this morning are all talking about that. So, you know, there could be a question of whether there are further scandals to come out and so on. But no, I don't think they have got many Except, of course, they can dangle even now that thought that he could leave in a sort of dignified manner, thanked by the Conservative Party and not dividing it. Does he really want a divided, rancorous and still angry Conservative Party when he hands over, or does he want one where the process of healing has begun? And some people who are his biggest critics are saying, well, we heard in that speech, a very quick playlist of the familiar greatest hits, Brexit and the pandemic and the vaccine rollout and Ukraine and so on. And it would still be possible for leading Tories to put together a kind of, he had his faults, but he took us through this period and he did that. And if he wants that to be the Tory narrative, then he can't rile them too much. But that's as much as the ammunition they've got, I think.
Apart from a sort of valedictory lap of honour at conference in October, what other reason could there be for him refusing to do what the party clearly wants him to do? I mean, are there any other reasons apart from vanity or almost reality denial?
150,000.
Well, this is what's really dangerous for the Conservative Party, because let me give an example. Let's say the Russians launch a new missile attack which hits Kyiv, and there's a huge eruption of emotion around the world about Ukraine on its back, fighting desperately for its survival. And Johnson, next month, while still Prime Minister, goes there and is warmly embraced by an exhausted and shattered-looking President Zelensky. And then he comes back and he says to the Conservative Party, there's nobody else... Zelensky comes to the Conservative conference and says, there is nobody else in the Western world who has given me the kind of support that Boris Johnson did. Are you really sure you want to get rid of this man? Is it possible, even then, there'll be some kind of last-minute change of heart by enough people? I don't know. The answer is no, it isn't possible, but he might be thinking of that. He might be dreaming of that. That process itself rips the Conservative Party in two, and that's what they're frightened of.
And I mean, that tallies with some of Dominic Cummings' warnings today as well.
It certainly does.
That idea that he will have... If we had to write a headline then, Andrew Marr, I suppose it would have to be leave doesn't mean leave.
Leave doesn't mean leave. Get leave done. Get Dexit done.
Brexit. Well, Andrew will be with us, with you indeed, at 6 o'clock tonight and every evening on LBC. Many thanks indeed for that. The question, of course, remains of I mean, what is he playing at? But I don't think now is the moment for that. Oddly, I can't do fully or completely what I wanted to do, which is the sort of post-mortem, if you like, or the epitaphs, because he is clinging on. He is ignoring the advice, ignoring the pleas of colleagues. He is doing what he has always done, which is precisely what he wanted. The option of not resigning taken away from him, but the option to resign half-heartedly, very much embraced, as you would expect, by Boris Johnson, a man who has never in his life thought of anybody's welfare but his own. So it's not actually end of an era now for the final 10 minutes of the programme. It is instead, how do you respond to that dampish squib of a resignation, that wriggle, if you like, that ravel, as opposed to what every other Prime Minister has done in similar circumstances, and drawn a very clear line under their premiership, as Andrew Marr suggests, and as Dominic Cummings has attested today. He will be thinking of some sort of escape route, some sort of secret passage back to the premiership. And I think we've talked about him enough on this programme to believe that that is true. But how ironic that for now at least, the phrase under which Boris Johnson's career
Jenkins
is
just left down
finally
Street
coming
Gate,
to an end is leave
outside.
doesn't
It was
mean
bizarre.
leave. Respond to that statement if you wish on 0345 60 60973. Sheila Fogarty will be with you shortly. The decision of the Prime Minister to continue until a new leader is elected is in many ways the worst case scenario for the Conservative Party and by association, of course, for the country as well. But there it is. Be interesting to see what the newspapers do tomorrow with response to this. Even the ones that up until this very morning were pretending that he was anything other than on the way out of the door. I'd be very interested to see whether or not this latest contortion undertaken by Boris Johnson receives support from the people who do deserve Tanya's description earlier of client media, which would be the editor of the Daily Mail or the political editor of The Sun and the rest of them. We'll only find out, of course, in the morning. But if you want to have a quick response to that, 0345 60 60973 is the number that you need. Jock's not happy. You cancelled Mystery Hour for that, he writes. Can I have the unused board game then? No, you can't, you cheeky beggar. Rob's in Sheffield. Rob, what did you make of all that then?
I am angry and I am sad.
Yes.
I am angry. I am angry because he has not apologised for one of the things which has got him to this position.
Not a single one. Not a single syllable of apology or contrition. That's incredible, right?
Like, he has not apologised for the PP scandals. He has not apologised for the sleaze and corruption which led to the resignation of Owen Paterson. He has not apologised for not dealing with the sexual harassment which led to the wins in Wakefield and Tifton and Honiton. He has not apologised for what led him to this point, which was the protection of Chris Pincher.
No, you're right.
He has not said a word. He has bumbled on like he always has, patting himself on the back, going, "Ooh, aren't I brilliant?"
Vaccines.
I'm sad because I know whether he goes tomorrow or he goes in October, the person who comes up next will be no way better.
I'm not so sure.
No, the Conservative Party has moved in one direction.
They won't be better, but they won't be Boris.
A lot of Theresa May revisionism
Got to get rid of Boris Johnson. We've got to get rid of Boris Johnson. Thank you, Alexis, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. I've been on since 10 o'clock this morning, waiting for this. Waiting for Boris Johnson's resignation speech, in which he didn't resign and kind of refused to resign and sort of stuck his...
Boris Johnson did not have that. Whoever takes over...
Whoever takes over from Boris Johnson seemingly a general election.
Will be a damn sight better at protecting and hiding it. His buffoonery has led him to this position. There are people taking over who are just as vicious as him,
with his
but they're
8,000
better
majority.
at hiding it.
Wow. I mean, it's a much bleaker analysis than Michael Heseltine's. I thought he was possibly over-optimistic, but you, I hope, are being overly pessimistic.
And there are 2 years until they need to have a general election.
Yeah.
And that is 2 years, Think what they've done in the last 2 years.
Yeah, of course.
And
look at what Gordon Brown
again.
did. There's no reason why they'd go to the country immediately until they felt they had a decent chance. Sadness and anger, remarkably. Could he have delivered a speech that would have addressed either of those emotions? Could you have been less angry and less sad if he had said, I'm sorry, the game is up?
The speech which would have made me happy is, I am sorry and I'm calling a general election. Because it will show that he is recognised.
But no, I think you have to give them a chance to put a leader in place before you have an actual general. I mean, to be fair to decent Conservatives such as they are, he can't call a general election when there's no one in the driving seat. I don't think.
Well, but I don't care. I don't see a Conservative Party that is going to do anything to benefit this country in the next 2 years.
No, well, I hope you are proved wrong, although obviously
Did the UK get your
Freedom
Day finally?
Beating
some Germany. We're never going to get a Freedom Day, mate.
In the background are absolutely scathing about Johnson's outrageous speech.
Maybe in Scotland they might get
even in the final
Day up there.
throes of his administration, the man's gracelessness and vanity are absolutely off the scale. Not a single syllable of apology, not a single syllable of contrition, not a single syllable of acknowledgement of the behaviours and the lies that have brought him to this point. I'm actually staggered. I'll never stop, will I? He'll always still
I'm not staggered. It's exactly what I expected
surprising me with his depravity.
That's why I got rid of the champagne.
I don't know why that is, but I'm glad I'm built that way. I wouldn't want to be built the other way, always expecting the worst. It'd be a glum and a gloomy way to live your life. Always believing the best in people, always thinking they're capable of improvement or redemption. It's probably the Catholic in me, isn't it? But if anyone was going to challenge that sort of spiritual optimism, it would be someone as utterly devoid of decency as Boris Johnson. Hayley is in Lancaster. Hayley, what would you like to say?
Keir Starmer's saying that he will threaten to table a no-confidence motion in Boris Johnson.
Helping to make sense of this mess.
If he clings on,
for a listener like me.
Well, thank you. That's a lovely thing to say.
No, the second thing is...
Come on, Starmer.
I don't really understand how, given everything that's happened, given everything we all know about, that he was challenged on, he's been challenged on time and again at PMQs. I mean, even yesterday, that his resignation speech could refer to absolutely none of that. It's like a completely parallel universe.
It just is. Yeah.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
I tell you a secret. I get a little bit scared coming straight off the back of live stuff with strong opinions, because I think, what if I'm calling it wrong? What if I've read it wrong? What if, as the dust settles, I'm going to have to eat some humble pie or even perhaps apologise on air? This is a prime ministerial resignation statement. Can you
thank you
really
very
go
much.
straight
Thank you very much,
to
Richard, for the
people now
£20
with
super
the
chat.
microphone
Thank you.
and start putting
Keep up the good work.
It was bloody awful, Bailey, wasn't
Thank
it?
you very much. I
Absolutely
really
awful.
appreciate it. Annie, hi Graham. What's the only reason?
The only
reason
if anything, you know,
we have Brexit is Johnson. Without him, won't it just implode? Yes.
Idiots. And also the third
That's why we need to get rid of Johnson. We need to get rid of this cunt. We need to get rid of this terrible, terrible human being who has been making our lives a fucking misery for the last 6 years and will continue to make our lives a fucking misery for as long as he can possibly get away with it. And for long after he's gone, actually, because we are going to have to clear up his fucking mess.
Your time is up. How is it he has any leverage to stay at all at this point?
I think constitutionally that's because the Queen asked him to form a government, and the mandate he receives from the Queen remains in place until there is a new leader of the Conservative Party, who will then have to go to the palace and receive permission.
Keir
from the
Starmer's
Queen
saying they're going to have another
to form a government. So it's one of those
yeah.
slightly arcane conventions and traditions that even he can't ride roughshod over. I tell you what, I mean, just thinking of to how things could have unfolded differently, I do wonder what would have happened if they just waited a couple of weeks for that confidence vote. It would, I mean, talk about jumping the gun on that one. And they came quite close, but my goodness me, the number of people that would vote for him now would be presumably basically everyone in the cabinet and nobody else.
Yeah, the
and
Queen
5
could
of
do
them
that.
wouldn't, we know. So
won't,
it's
but
the
she could.
cabinet -5 would be on the pro-Boris Johnson side of proceedings.
Priti Patel said that, yes. She's in the cabinet.
Or they would
She's
say,
in the
I have voted for you, but
caretaker
just to let you
cabinet.
know, I don't believe in
It's
it.
actually sad that UK politics should be filled with
Oh, Hayley, thank you. I think we could all do with a giggle at times like this, and also
It's quite sad.
quite a suitable
Yeah.
for a son of Yorkshire.
But
Quite
I
a
said this
suitable
earlier,
criticism
I
there
kinda
from
feel
an
like
on-site
Britain
text saying,
deserves it
James,
for
there
all
is
the
only
fucking
one
shit it's done
R
in the past.
in Lancaster.
In the way that Germany
You're quite
kind of
right.
deserved
There
to
is
be
only
split
one
in two
R in
for
Lancaster.
45
but,
years after the
my
end
school
of
was
the
one of the only places
Cold
in
War.
the English-speaking
Sorry,
world where
Second
they
World War.
described Sunday church as Mass.
World War 11,
rather
as
than Mass.
Nadine
So
Dorries,
you could take the
calls
boy
it.
out of the pronunciations. It's rather hard to take the pronunciations
collective punishment's
out
not
of the
great,
boy.
but
And there it
when the
is.
country
Thank you
continues
for
to
keeping me
behave like
company
fucking
today, and
hooligans,
indeed
there's a
over
point
this
where you gotta go, right,
nightmare of
we need to put
the
things in
last
place
two
in
and a
this
half
country can
years
never
or
behave
so,
like
as we've
hooligans
seen, or
again.
last 3 years or so, as we've seen.
I'm moving to Bristol soon,
all of the
only a
things
couple
that
of
we
hours from
hold
London
dear,
Pound with
democratically
a
speaking,
megaphone.
and in
Oh,
terms of
brilliant.
common decency and the very
Boris
least
saying Little Long
expectations
and
of what we
Jump
expect to
Fish
see in public office,
would have been a
denigrated
more
so
genuine
completely,
speech
so
to this 5
violently,
minutes of season 2
and
recap
so
to
shamelessly.
Farnball.
And I'm almost grateful to Boris Johnson there for just reminding us at the
England's
end that all of
Berlusconi.
the words
Yeah.
I used to describe him are
Britain,
fair
Trump,
and
England,
accurate,
Berlusconi.
and in some ways
And just-
not even
just
adequate,
as
because he is
sexually
utterly
incontinent.
reprehensible, utterly vile, utterly despicable.
Yeah.
And in the final pass, even then, he couldn't help but revert to type and trumpet bogus victimhood, absence of contrition, and unapologetic calumnies.
Yep.
Goodbye, Boris Johnson, and may we never look upon your like again. Here's Sheila Fogarty.
Thank you very much
Okay,
indeed,
we're gonna
James.
leave it
Well,
at
as
that.
you heard in the last half an hour, Boris Johnson has said it is painful not to be able to see through so many projects and ideas. This is as he announced something like his
Got any
resignation
ideas?
as Tory party leader.
Shite bag.
Big question really over whether
Levelling
he
up,
can
I came up
stay
with
in
levelling up,
place for the
you
next
two.
what,
Oh,
2
my
or 3
idea,
months as a
back
Conservative
with that.
leadership election campaign goes on. Very few Conservative MPs seem to think that that's a feasible possibility, and the conversations are already taking place with Sir Graham Brady, the chair of the Backbench
Till
1922
October.
committee,
Till
about whether
October.
the
He wants
contest
to cling on.
can be
He
speeded
wants to
up.
cling
it
on
happened
for
very
as long
quickly
as humanly
when Theresa May
possible.
became
That's what
Prime
he
Minister,
wants to
didn't it? So
fucking
let's
do.
talk about the implications of this.
Obvious.
Let's listen again carefully to what he said, and we'll talk about his time in office.
Okay, that's enough of that. I'm just going to turn the radio off. Yeah, you're back stuck with me for a few more moments. I am going to wrap it up at this point. I did want to do a Hughes of the World tonight. It'll be my first in several months, but after today's morning, I normally spend most of the day prepping for my shows, but I haven't been able to do that, and I've been live for 3 hours now. So I'm thinking maybe maybe. I might give it a miss tonight. So BJ and PP are both evil. They are indeed. Maybe he can declare war on Russia, but that would buy him a few months. We can't hear a thing, mate. Puts the news volume down. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Was I? Oh well. You can hear me now though, can't you? I'm honestly got the mic turned all the way up. I don't know why it's so quiet. The only thing I think of is that the gain has been turned down here at the back. Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's probably it. I'll put that to like, I don't know, just above halfway there. Hello. If that's distorting at all, let me know. I'm just going to turn the master volume down a bit. I think the little dial on the back of my mic had gone down a bit. And this is why I need a producer, so I don't have to worry about this shit. Although, the last few days, there's been several reports on LBC and on the BBC. There was an interview with Keir Starmer yesterday, and the sound was just fucking awful. It was, like, absolutely dreadful. And I was sitting there going, oh my God, you're watching it on this, like, big, expensive TV, and the sound sounded like it was coming from a little tinny speaker and just, distorting a lot. Christmas came early. I'm off to do other stuff. Is it true that inflation is more extreme in the UK than in Germany? For example, I heard £6 for 500 grams of butter. In Germany, that costs €2.25. Ricardo, yes, in the UK, I think it was actually £9 for a 1 kilogram tub of Lurpak. So we have an inflation of between 9 and 10% at the moment in the UK, and our economy has gone off a cliff because the Tories have driven it off a cliff because that's what they fucking do, fucking Tories. Balloon and party champagne. Well, David, he's not left. He's not left. We thought we were going to have the champagne. We thought we were going to have party poppers and stuff, but he's not left. He has said he's staying on till October, and he will engineer stuff in the meantime to make sure that he stays leader because he doesn't want to give up ever. And it's up to his party to force him out. And otherwise, Parliament needs to reconvene this afternoon and have a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson. I was told today on Twitter, and do you know what? It's one of those things where you're like, I should have looked that up, because I said, well, there's three ways this can go. We can either have a vote of no confidence with the Tory party for him as leader to get rid of him, or we can have a vote of no confidence in Parliament, which normally wouldn't get through, but obviously there are a lot of Tories that want him out, so it would actually get through in this case, with 149 MPs actually voting against Boris Johnson a few weeks ago at the first vote of no confidence, and then add the 59, I think, cabinet resignations to on top of that, and that speech has not gone down well from what I can read on Twitter down here. It's not gone down very well with the Tory faithful at all, with the Tory MPs. So that's another way. And also the Queen could tell him to fuck off as well. The Queen has got the authority to tell the Prime Minister that he no longer has her support, and then he would have to go and because he can't form a functioning government. So Boris Johnson hasn't resigned. He needs to be out. But yeah, so I put these forward, and someone on Twitter said, oh, but if you do a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, it can't be the Prime Minister in Parliament. It's got to be the government, and the Tories won't vote for that. And I was like, oh shit, okay. So I felt a bit stupid and deleted my tweet, and because you can't edit it. And then I've just been informed by Keir Starmer, because I actually sent the tweet to Keir Starmer, that they are going to go for a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, not the government, but in the Prime Minister. So, he resigned, though. It's what the Spanish said. No, he said he will resign, David. He said he will resign, but he hasn't actually resigned. More Boris till September. More Boris till October, by the looks of things. My missus works in Morrison's. They were putting security cards on Lurpak to stop them being stolen yesterday. Fuck me. Leanne says, plenty of volunteers to help move them out. I bet. Yeah, indeed. The tabloids say Labour messed up the economy, explain the 10 years of economic growth under Blair and Brown then. Well, exactly. And the, massive increase in public services, in education, in infrastructure, in the health service, thousands of new doctors, thousands of new nurses. The New Deal for musicians is something that I look back on with fondness, where it was given a chance for British musicians to actually, be able to claim some benefit while they were gigging, because obviously, gigging economy of gigging is quite difficult to make ends meet until you become quite famous. I'm just going to sneeze, so I'm going to turn my mic off for a moment because I don't think you need to hear that. Am I going to sneeze? Am I? Oh, look at that horrible thing where you think you're going to sneeze. I'm trying to look at my light. I'm not going to sneeze. All right. Anyway, Tesco have security tags on cheese. Yeah, I saw a picture of that. Fucking hell. It's the way it's going, isn't it? It's the way it's going. When Labour lost the last election, the election in 2010, and the Tories took power, there was like 50,000 people using food banks in the whole of the United Kingdom. Now there's over 1 million. I think it's 1.5 million now. 12 years of Tory Britain. 12 years of Tory. Don't forget about child poverty. Yeah, millions of children now in poverty. Labour lifted millions of children out of poverty, and then the Tories came along and put them back in. Fucking Tories. Fucking Boris Johnson. Fuck them all to death. Bastards. Absolute fucking bastards. The Russians did tagging of butter first. We're a month behind in the UK. Well, indeed, we have the worst performing economy of any semi-advanced state, apart from Russia, which has had sanctions put on it by pretty much every other country in the world. And we put sanctions on ourselves with Brexit, which still a lot of people, they fucking love it more than they love their firstborn child. I was complaining to my dad that he got 4 tubs of butter in his fridge, but now I'm thinking he's a genius. My favourite cake maker makes all of her cakes with Lurpak, and the price of it now has gone absolutely mad. I'm back. What have I missed? Says Jim Bob. Hi, Jim Bob. Basically, Boris Johnson didn't resign. He made a speech about how great he was, and then he said he might resign, but he didn't use the word resign. And he's not going anywhere at the moment. So let's regroup at some point. I'm sure I can use this clownfall ident again in the future. How can we have a meritocratic society with education getting worse and worse, and Sunak donating £100,000 to his old private school? Well, exactly. When I'm in charge, they're all getting shut down, mate. We're not going to have any more private schools. We're going to go for the Finnish model. I'm not sorry to say, because the private schools are a fucking menace, and they cause a lot of suffering in the country, and not least to the poor little bastards who have to go to them, where they face a much higher chance of being abused than they would if they went to a state school. So you've got to worry about that. Like, why would anyone send their kids to these things? Well, they do it because if they don't get abused, or even if they do, they'll get a really good job and some weird sexual fetishes. Thanks, Dad. Anyway, right, I'm getting off. So until next time, I will love you and leave you, and hopefully we will have more to talk about very, very soon. I'm just going to find my list of patrons, which I can never bloody find on this. Where is it? Hang on a sec. I hate this. I hate it when I'm looking at the screen and I'm sort of like doing this thing where you hold your glasses. It's here. I don't know why the makers of OBS decided to make have a dark background and grey letters. It makes it a bit difficult to see. I can't actually see it. I don't think it's there. Oh well, never mind. I'll just disappear then, I guess. Or maybe I could use the clown fall thing that I made, since I can't find my beautiful list of wonderful patrons, which I normally end the show on. I can't bloody find it. Oh well, kill me now. And I can't find the other one. There it is. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me for Clownfall. I guess this is the very first part of Clownfall. I'm guessing this is going to become a weekly show until the fucker actually leaves. So thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.